And we are back. Couch Company Podcast. I'm John. With me as always, Tyler.
Salutations.
Nice. And special guest, I think for the first time, because I don't think he was officially on here before. I think we
several times.
Those, really?
Yeah.
Aren't those the lost episodes?
No, there's A, the episode's still on there. B, he did the fight thing with Jeff.
Oh, that was cool. Yeah. Back again, like I said.
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a great time.
My cousin Nate. How's it going, Nate?
Hello. I'm doing well.
Yeah, the fight game was actually a lot of fun. What was that called? No, Super Battle?
Super Fight.
Super Fight. Yeah. It's this card game. Essentially, it gives you like prompts and rules, I guess, and you have to argue why your team would win or whatever.
You pick two combatants, you can pick weapons and pick the place of combat. And then you just, it's just an argument game.
Yeah, that was a good time. Well, anything we do that's like improv is like a good time.
Yeah, we should do it again.
Yeah, we could do it again. But
not today.
No, we're not today. We got a lot to get through today. But so I am curious about, actually, I would like the first like minute or 2 minutes to decompress my depression. So the New York Rangers
okay.
are...
I thought you were going to go straight to
No,
Tekken.
I wouldn't do that too.
Yeah, thanks.
New York Rangers are facing elimination, and by the time this comes out, they might be out, and I'm convinced I will never see them win a cup. It's just not going to happen. Every year I convince myself that this is the year.
They play tomorrow, Saturday.
They play Saturday.
Yeah.
And they might lose. They got to win that, and then they got to win Monday. So by the time this comes out, they're going to be either in the Stanley Cup Finals or out.
I thought there was the Stanley Cup final. They're still playing playoffs?
It's still playoff season.
Jeez.
Yeah. Stanley Cup Finals starts June 8th, I think. They just announced. Okay. Anyways, super depressed. They're just getting outplayed. There's a chance, though. I still believe somehow in my heart. But last night was bad. I was really upset.
So if they lose once, they're out.
Yeah, they got to win twice. So they're going to Florida on Saturday.
So that'll be game 6.
It's going to be a really tough game. But yeah.
Who are they playing?
Florida Panthers. Which
you
team. Ranked their logo like a 2 out of 10.
Yeah. It's pretty... I don't know.
We ranked the NHL logos. He didn't like any of them.
Full disclosure, I think I cut most of that out of the episode last week. Yeah.
Oh, why? I thought it was good stuff.
Yeah, until you listen back to it, and it was a lot of...
You're just looking at it, yeah.
A lot of pausing, so I was like, I have the Rangers logo. We kept that in. But as far as us going
you kept the part where you shit
ones,
on the rain. Yeah, that's good. No, that's good.
Yeah.
I listen to probably every podcast with the exception of like one or two. And this one, I will say that I haven't listened to the whole thing yet. I like listened to the beginning, then like skipped a section, then like skipped a section.
Yeah, we need the video component for that segment.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's playoff hockey.
I have the files. We can always make it a bonus content. Or I get a redo, like a do-over.
I thought you were... I mean, you know it better than me.
Yeah, well, whatever.
You still watch hockey, Nate? Are you still into that or not as much anymore?
So I watch hockey when I remember that it's on. I used to like follow the Penn schedule and stuff. And especially like whenever we had cable, I would keep an eye on it and I would have like alerts and stuff set up. Anymore, I don't know.
You don't have TV.
I don't have TV, and I could like stream it on like one of the fun sites on the internet. But sometimes they don't work. Sometimes you get a nasty letter from your email or your internet provider. Sometimes, so
do you have ESPN Plus?
I think we do through like Verizon.
Those have most of the games.
I think they have like a lot of soccer, baseball, football. Hockey is not.
No, they do.
On there.
Yeah, they have.
Do they?
My brother watches every Ranger game.
I think they have it on Apple TV as well.
I definitely only subscribe to that when Ted Lasso's in season.
Fair enough.
And that's gone now.
That's your Ted Lasso streaming platform.
I literally would wait until the season was done, and then we would purchase Apple TV.
That's funny. Yeah,
we'd watch it we'd have it for a month for like $8.
Yeah.
Would you say Ted Lasso is like top 5 favorite shows?
I'm in Tyler's boat with, I think anything Apple puts out has been gold. Like a majority of the shows that they put on that service, like I watched Severance on your recommendation. Severance was great. We watched Shrinking. Shrinking was great.
Did you do For All Mankind?
I did not, but we didn't have the subscription
that's a good
then.
That's a good one. Yeah.
So
What did we put that on our streaming top 5?
I think it was in there, but I got steamrolled by
But
you and
Mike
Mike,
manhandled
yeah.
you in that, but
Yeah.
I think it was 2 then?
No, I think it was probably
You were fighting
3.
for
It
it.
was probably 3 or 4.
It was on there though.
I think it's a small collection, but high quality stuff.
Well, they're coming out with a movie, George Clooney and Brad Pitt, dude, on Apple TV.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and I'm like super excited for
Sure.
that. That's like old
Tom
school.
Hanks is on there. Like,
Yeah, well, they're getting all the
Yeah.
A-list
Yeah.
people. So it just goes to show you have the money and
Oh,
you
yeah.
can just buy whatever you want.
sure,
Much like Microsoft,
yeah,
right?
uh-huh.
Much like Xbox. They have all the money. They can buy
Just
any
buy
game,
buy
any
100
property they
billion
want.
in developers.
So I think it's a good transition.
Yeah, I was just gonna go with it for you.
We got a request. Jeff, What Killed Jeff, requested that we talked about. We got into an argument, I guess it's fair to say.
A discussion.
We did talk about
discussion
the
with knives.
the bet
Yeah,
where he believes it's Xbox Game Pass specifically is going to go bust in 10 years. What do you have 10 years? A decade?
I have a decade. Yeah, it's like I forget what the exact date. Like May 24th, 2025, or something like that.
The bet is only costing you $100 a year, so that's like not crazy. It's like
I
making
should-
10
I
$100
should
bets.
put 100. That's a great.
Right?
That's
Isn't that a way?
call
I
out.
was thinking about that. I was like, this is a great way. As a
$100 a
gambler,
year. Yeah,
you have to think this way.
put in my growth account.
There you go.
Yeah.
Anyways, so Jeff requested that we come to the table with 2 reasons why Xbox Game Pass is a good business strategy for Microsoft,
Yeah.
right? That's the prompt.
Or I took it as business strategy for the company. So either Microsoft,
Yeah.
developers, whatever.
Essentially, he wants a positive rationale on the business perspective, not like the consumer perspective.
Yeah, because it's great for consumers.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. And develop like for the gaming industry too, that we were talking
Well,
about.
I think that's his argument. Is it's not great for the gaming industry.
Fair enough. Well, I think it is. But so I don't know who wants to start. I know that we all did a little bit of prep on this one.
Got a little prep. Got some thoughts.
Do you have some notes on this, Nate? Or
So the only thing
Shoot
that
from
I
the hip.
saw that was like worth like going into, and Tyler and I came from a GameStop background where we did lots of game sales, but I don't know, we have no insight to the industry or how it works, right, Ty?
Yeah. Well,
So we didn't do that for like 10 years of our lives. But so as you know, working through like GameStop and whatnot, anything that comes out brand new releases, they aren't profitable. You make like 5% on top of any new game release, any new console release, if that, right? And so where do you make all your money? At that time, it was strategy guides and like, disk protection services and stuff. Now it's all mostly digital. Don't need to protect something that doesn't exist in your hand. And strategy guides are free on any, Google search. So you don't attach those, but what you do attach now is DLC. And so I was reading a report out to the don't know why the word just left my head. The people that buy like your stock and stuff, the investors.
there you go.
There you go.
don't worry, I'll fix that in post. It'll be
No, it's okay. You can leave it. But so there was a report out to the investors, and basically they were saying they make $1 billion a quarter on Game Pass because of DLC, like third-party DLC purchases. And then the other thing is too that I thought was super interesting, but the devs that put the games on Game Pass only get paid if their game's played. So it's like a royalty fee.
So I don't know how true that because it's a little weird with the dev stuff is because every deal is different.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a difference in like so if you look at like Steam, right? Like if you want to put your game on Steam, you have to pay Steam. It was like 30%,
30%,
right? Like it was pretty high out there.
Yeah.
And then when Epic came on the scene, that was like a different percentage, and it was like much lower, and everyone praised Epic because they were, this is so much better, and like that kind of shone a light on how that goes. Microsoft's a little different where they do royalties, but it's based off of user, just like the base, I believe. So it's like one of those things like, I don't know if you necessarily have to play the game as much as like if they install it or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have like 34 million Game Pass subscribers.
Well, they're forcing everybody to Game Pass now, right? Because if you want Xbox Live, don't you get Game Pass with it?
I think it's all mixed together. I don't know if you're like forcing it. It's this, so I would say they'd force it if they like raise the cost of like.
Well, so there's like two different
online and
versions.
different
There's the
things like that.
base like Xbox Live with Game Pass, and then there's the Pro.
Like the Ultimate, which gives you
With
your
Ultimate.
streaming and your PC and just all of it at the same time. Yeah. But it's like a $5 difference, isn't it? Something like that.
I think it's more than that, but I honestly don't know.
They might have changed it now where it's just $15 a month. I probably should have looked this up before we started recording, but I think it's $15 a month for like Game Pass with console, and then it's just $10 for PC.
I think that sounds correct.
Yeah.
Isn't the Ultimate Edition though like 15 or 20?
That's what I mean. The Ultimate is...
Okay,
is-
so that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
So if you get it on console, you have to get the Ultimate Edition?
I think so, but that includes the...
Yeah. I
everything.
saw a bundle where like you get the console and like a Game Pass thing.
No, Nate's looking it up.
And-
We got our real life
Research department.
research department. Yeah.
So Game Pass Ultimate 14-day recurring trial $1.
Okay. Well, yeah, sure.
Just kidding.
How do they make the money? So the thing is with... So
1 month is $16.99.
okay, so they raised
on
it $2.
console.
It's just 1 month. It doesn't specify. Oh, I'm on the Xbox page, so I would assume yes on console.
because
It's still
mine's still not
$10.
$10.
Yeah, $10 on
mine-
PC.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay.
So PC Game Pass is loading. You can join for $1. And
Since you're playing research department, can you look up the game Concord and see if it's going to be a free-to-play game? Because I think this is going to go
That's
into...
a little foreshadowing.
Yeah, well, that's going to go into my kind of argument. So, one of the business benefits of Game Pass is the install base, right? So, if they have 34 million players or people that subscribe to Game Pass, now you know that there's 34 million people that could install your game and play your game or whatever. So, when you're looking at multiplayer games and when you're looking at stuff like your Overwatch, I'm going to call it an Overwatch clone, Concord. The reason, so yeah, we're kind of all over. Concord is going to be an Overwatch-like 5v5 PvP shooter that Sony is putting out. I want to know if that's a free-to-play game or if that's something that they're selling a la carte that is, pay your $60 for the game, whatever.
My assumption is that it's not, because I think they would preface that if it was going to be
free to play.
Like,
I
don't you think?
completely agree with you.
So Tyler's referencing State of Play, which we'll
get
talk
there,
about. Talk about, but yeah, that's my assumption.
Right. So knowing that and knowing that it's okay, like Sony's going to try that. And like, who knows? That game might be great. So I don't want to like kind of poo-poo that game. But the idea is if you're going into a market, especially let's say you're doing like your Valorant, your Overwatch, even Call of Duty, whatever, and you're playing, like you're bringing your software out and you're going up against these like kind of giants that really have the market cornered. I think you are asking a lot of a consumer to be paying $60 for your game and hopefully like they're putting your faith in the game. And if you have any issues, now it's like, well, I paid $60. This is BS. And then they either get a refund or, people are a little bit more forgiving of free to play stuff than they are other, like when I'm paying $70 and the game is busted on launch. So that being said,
So if you want to circle back, I can give you the answer in a
Yeah,
switch.
go for it.
Because I think it moves into one of your other topics, and I wasn't sure if you guys are ready to.
no, I mean, go ahead and hit us, and we'll
So Concord does not have an official statement that it's going to be free to play.
okay.
However, most gaming mediums believe that it will be, with the exception of you're required to have a PlayStation Plus membership to play it, which is akin to playing Fortnite online with any other, console or whatever. It's still free to play, but you do have to pay for that.
Fortnite, you don't have to pay anymore,
Oh, really?
which is an Xbox thing.
Wait, so what if you're playing on PC?
I believe on PlayStation you still need to pay to play Fortnite, based on the article that I read.
Maybe. But
So what if you're playing on PC?
so PC, when we'll get there too, PC, they make you have a PlayStation Plus account for, let's say, God of War.
is our PlayStation Plus? That's not free, right? That's
No,
I don't
that's
know.
there. So you might need a PlayStation account to
PlayStation
play
Network
God of
account,
War.
I'm sorry, yeah.
But if you want to play like online, I've never personally played a Sony like PlayStation launch
You have
game.
to have it online because that's what I did for Tekken.
No,
So
I
when
mean,
got it for.
I mean, like you might have to have it online, but not like multiplayer. Like I've never tried to play a Sony online game in multiplayer, so I don't
on
know
PC, you mean?
if it's required. I would assume, and we know PlayStation isn't always about like the togetherness and stuff, right? They're
Sure.
usually the roadblock when it comes to like expanding or like bringing people together.
Mhm.
But it's I've never played a Sony game that wasn't single player on my PC. If there was a Sony game with multiplayer, I would assume that they would not require you to sign up for their paid online
Well, it was
service.
Helldivers, and then they put that on there, and then everyone rebelled against it, and then they pulled it out.
Right.
So it's like when by the time we played it, it wasn't a thing.
That's fair. And I also
Yeah.
just lied about not playing a Sony
Yeah, well,
game.
that was my passive aggressive. Like, yeah, you did. But anyway, the point I'm making is you have a much larger install base. You know that people have a very low barrier of entry. And then it's, you can actually have people play your game, because if the thing that always plagues PvP stuff is just the user base isn't there, and they shut down within 6 months or even less, depending on like the severity of it. So I think that right there is a good business proposition for any developer who is doing a multiplayer focused game, which I'm sure Jeff he said he had 2 things supporting this. I'm sure that's one of them. The other thing too is like obviously indie devs who, I take my cousin Justin all the time, who's like very AAA game, really loves the graphics, loves the, that's basically like make it look really good, make it 60 frames, he's in type of thing. But you get these indie games that, he'll try out because it's on the system. And look, even if people that like normally wouldn't play your game, try your game out for like 10 minutes because you made a deal with Microsoft to put your game out there, like that's a good risk. Like clearly it's enough of a deal where everyone is getting a different deal, and Microsoft is making these proposals to people that they're taking. So like it's hard for me to believe that Microsoft is making these proposals and deals, and all the developers and all the financial officers of all these developers are like not smart enough to know if it's a good or bad investment, and they're all saying, yeah, it's a good investment, let's do it. You know what I mean? I think that's part of it. Like it's hard for me to believe. Like I can see if it's like a flat fee, but
once again, just going back to the DLC portion, right? If you have a developer who, I'm sure they make money on their game, right? But they make more money on that downloadable content, because I guarantee you the amount of work that goes into pre-built assets that they tweak and re-release kind of deal, right?
Sure.
Is significantly cheaper than the base game. So going on Game Pass, yeah, you lose the little bit of profit you would have made on your base game, but you're making it back tenfold because, oh, I didn't pay for this game, I'll buy that $40 skin. Oh, I didn't pay for this game, I'll buy that, $2.99 content pack to get the little emote that I can spray whenever I kill somebody. Like,
Yep. No, I think Nate hits the nail on the head, and those are the arguments that I came to the table with. So, from my understanding, I read an article from the chief financial officer of Microsoft, I believe, last year. It was like August of
like Seymour Butts or something, right?
Yeah, I think I did.
Booty.
Giggle
I think Booty is his last name. I think Booty's his last name.
Anyways, so I was reading this article. Essentially, he was explaining the business model, and my understanding of it is, if you're looking linearly at like what the strategy is like, do they have enough subscribers to support this venture? Obviously, that's not the case. It's too cheap for it to be sustainable, but it's indirectly where you're going to make those profits. So what I mean by that is that, like Nate said, you're going to be getting it by drawing people in. It's like casting a wide net, getting a larger volume of player base. And then it's those extra purchases that are going to make you the money. So that's DLC. Maybe that's other games on the platform. So I'll give you some anecdotal examples. Like Persona 3 came out this year, right? They had the Persona 5 skins for that, right? So that's like a couple bucks that I'm sure a lot of people buy. You can buy that, and your characters in that game have the Persona 5 skins. And thinking back on it, I think their strategy for that. So Persona 4, Persona 5 were on Game Pass up until the release of Persona 3, or like soon before or whatever. So it's like, oh man, I'm in the mood for Persona 3. You play Persona 3 or whatever, and then you're like, man, I really want to play Persona 5 again or Persona 4, because that's how I felt. And it's not a Game Pass anymore. You could buy it on there. So like, how many people bought it on there? It's just casting a wide net, a large volume, and I think you're going to get a lot of people that are going to buy those things. I think it's a lot easier to comprehend for the multiplayer stuff, like you guys were addressing, where you have these skins. And Tyler and I, for example, were playing Battlefront because it was on sale, and then Tyler was in the mood to play Battlefield, right? I was never going to pay full price for that game because, it's broken on launch. It's a couple years old now, but it was on Game Pass. So we downloaded it, we started playing it, and now I'm getting exposed to all these battle passes, these skins that I can buy, right? Maybe I'm not going to buy it, but how many people, like what percentage of people are going to buy it? You know, because I feel like there is a number of people that are like, oh, wow, Battlefield's on Game Pass. Why not? So I think that's the strategy. Get people exposed to the content, and you're going to get a percentage of people that are going to buy the downloadable content, the skins, the extra purchases, and that's where the money's going to be. But again, I don't know what the deals are. I think that's my second point. I think, as Tyler mentioned, every deal is individual per developer, and you can have flexibility in that process to create something that makes sense from a making money standpoint, right? So I'm not going to pretend to know the complexities that go into that, but you're making investments on these things. You have a lot of small studios, for example, that might pop off. I mean, we see this all the time. Like look at Pal World, for example. Like that game just went crazy, and so I think you're going to see Microsoft investing in a lot of indie games, a lot of small studios making these games, and then you can see huge returns on that if something explodes in popularity.
I think you make a good point too with the casting a wide net. In the industry that we work in, we know that sometimes the land grabs go, you make something cheap for a little bit.
Right.
People buy the heck out of it. They become invested in using certain services or certain, resources available to them through your product. And Microsoft's going to be the same way. You get used to not paying $60 every time a new game comes out, which is burning Jeff up on the inside. You get used to, not having to worry about waiting for the game to be installed, whatever, because you already have the ability to access it in pre-release. So you don't have to worry about if you're going to have the money available for it for the month, because now you can hit both the people that have more than enough money and can buy the game if they really want to, and you can hit all the people that can't afford and maybe have to pick one or two games to play with their friends. Now they can buy or get the new game for the most part every month. And at right now, what we said, it was $17, goes up to $60 in a year. Well, I guarantee you there's going to be one $60 game on Game Pass I want to buy. I'll buy it. Goes up to $120. I guarantee you there's $220 or $200.
Well, it is $16 a
games.
month, so like you are getting around that anyway. So you're paying like the $100 and
right, but like
$60 a year or whatever. But
let's say it goes up to $200 a year.
Yeah.
Like you can justify it in your head real easy. It becomes John's, McChicken algorithm. Like I can justify it. I can justify it because this is how many games I normally buy a year.
Yep.
So now I don't have to buy those games. And like the thing is too, like I'm surprised Jeff's so against it. I mean, I'm not knowing him and the way his like brain operates, or at least assuming how his brain operates, right? Mm-hmm. But like
Jeff's gonna bust through this door and start pummeling you. We love you, Jeff.
But with that whole piece, like this is a great thing for people trying to like get out in like the streaming environment and stuff too. Because for the people like Jeff who are those variety streamers and want to have a large wealth of content, it can be expensive, especially if you're like a college student or somebody young without like a real job trying to make this your gig, to afford all of the things that you need in order to be successful and to have that variety of content. Pay $16 a month, and all of a sudden I've got 500, 1,000 games at my fingertips, and there's no way I'm going to be able to keep up with the content on here and run out of stuff to stream, especially with it always evolving.
Two quick points, because I know we talked about League of Legends just earlier today, but that's a perfect example of like, okay, like League of Legends, Valorant, here's all the champs unlocked automatically, right? So you want to talk about getting skins. Now the barrier for entry in terms of just like trying every new champ, totally fine, you can do it. And now every one of those has multiple skins that people can buy, like just opens it wide up.
My Game Pass subscription there goes a $40 skin.
Yeah, I mean,
it keeps you locked in too. That's a good point. I didn't even think about that.
So you have that end, and then kind of what you were saying is like, I think what you were coming at it from still a consumer level, and like our assignment was looking at it from like a business perspective. And I think that both are intertwined, and that if you're looking at the movie industry, the TV industry, the music industry, like I don't think you talk to anybody and they say that the future isn't just all digital, all streaming. I'm not saying that's good or bad, but I think that's where we're going, right? Like,
I think to be fair though, Jeff admits that.
absolutely, no,
portion of it.
100%.
Yeah, I just want to.
So knowing that and knowing that's where it's going to go, video games are not exempt from that. In fact, video games are the easiest thing to to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it a step further and say that I think the future isn't even you purchase like download like them. I think it's going to end up being just streaming like your Netflix and everything else.
They're already
You're gonna
trying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So knowing that that's where the industry is shifting.
And continuing to shift. Like they've shut down so many of those programs, and yet they keep bringing it up.
But the idea is like, what does Netflix and Spotify and everyone have in common is like they were first. Like they did it. They were the infrastructure. Like it's like you have other things, like you have your Apple Music, you have like other things that pop up, but like Spotify and Netflix are like the two. Right now, I'm not saying like all the other TV companies and like they all want a piece of the pie. I get that. The only reason they even have a breadth is because they have the licensing to a lot of the shows, right? So they can pull it in, and they're doing essentially what you see like any game launcher does with EA and Epic and everything else. Like, oh no, we want our own launcher. No, you have to download Uplay to play something. So I'm not going to say it's not going to be kind of this like hellscape of various things like that. I'm not saying that's a good way of going. But that's where the industry is going. That's where everything is.
Yeah,
so,
that's bad. Like that's bad for the consumer.
Yeah,
but good for the business at that point, right?
That's the thing. Is like that's what the consumer wants to pay. Like, here's a monthly fee. Don't gate me.
I go back to
do whatever.
What you said about how he wants points from the business. But if you think about it, the business is always focused on the consumer because the business doesn't go unless the consumer is willing to buy it. I'm not saying they go for the best path for the consumer, but what the business is looking at is what will the consumer tolerate.
Yeah. Oh, they will. The biggest revenue with the least amount of work, or like absolutely.
Well, the
So
argument
once again,
in this particular situation is not that the consumer is not enjoying the product, because obviously this is very good. Like we mentioned in the outset, I think Jeff's point is it's not sustainable. It's actually too good for the consumer to be a profitable business model.
But what Nate was saying is that will eventually just get more and more expensive.
I am
just
on
like
the same page.
Netflix is $25.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It used to be 10.
Nate made a great point where it's like you capture the base, and then once you have them, like once Microsoft buys every property, you got to go to them and they can do whatever they want.
Microsoft has the pockets, with the exception of maybe your Apple, right? Like maybe they can kind of muscle the way in, but even Google tried and didn't hit it, right? So like Microsoft has a good thing in that people are, I would say, largely and generally favorable of Game Pass. Now, obviously, I'm sure that all the deals with the developers, I'm sure they have to sign NDAs. I'm sure that if they were unhappy with the deal, they can't go online and start ripping Microsoft apart. So I'm not saying it's perfect.
I know why you're coming from this, but that article that I pulled up with Phil talking to the investors and describing it as royalties is from September of this year. So you're probably right. There probably is a deal, but I really think that based on the way this model works and you bringing up Spotify and Netflix and stuff, Spotify and Netflix are the same way. They get a royalty for watching their show or, consuming their content. May not be, completely finishing it, but for each time you hit play on a specific episode or whatever, that company or that user gets something, right?
Yeah.
And for like Netflix and stuff, I feel like it's more like ad revenue and whatnot. Maybe not so much Netflix, but like Hulu and a lot of them, like ad revenue is what drives it outside of the subscription fee. With Xbox, you don't have the ads, but you have all that DLC. So you're encouraging people to come on. And once again, like I was saying earlier, they don't make a ton of money on a game release. Like game companies, like it's like, oh, this person or this made $50 million in, a weekend or whatever, right? Like they sold 50 million copies. That's not profit. That's how much it's sold for. Profit's significantly lower of a number, right? So you take out like, okay, we need people to pre-order our game. Okay, people, you need to buy our game so that we can get our return on investment. Instead, now we're forcing them to go to a model where we go with the battle pass stuff that we're seeing in Fortnite, and we go with the DLC and the skins and things. Like the battle pass is the cheat code to profit for these companies now. Sure. Every game has a freaking battle pass and incentivizes you to keep playing. their specific game, so it incentivizes you to buy their content. And then for people like me who don't like to miss out on something, right? Like I've only ever done this once, thankfully, but like I've paid money to complete a battle pass, right? Like, okay, this is expiring in 2 days and I've got 40 levels to go.
Yeah.
I'll knock out as much as I can. And then the last day I'm going to spend $23 to hit those 23 levels.
I literally almost did, and this is BS, but I almost did that in Tekken just because it's like I finished the battle pass on PlayStation and I got my money on PlayStation, but the PC is like my actual like library, right? Like that's my collection. And it's like, I kind of want those white eyes, you know? So it's like,
I didn't end up springing for it. I left it alone.
I needed the white eyes. But it's, yeah, like my whole thing is like, you can't look at Game Pass as it is now, which for the sake of argument, let's say it's not profitable, right? Even though Microsoft is coming out and saying, hey, our games and content was up $300+ million year over year. This was, I think, in December. And 13% of that is attributed to Game Pass. So they're saying Game Pass is profitable. They're not releasing numbers, to Jeff's point and everything. So like,
that's why I think it's indirectly profitable.
Sure.
Yeah.
So let's say for sake of argument, it's not profitable. They're bleeding money. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be like this. We already know, like it's already gone up in price, right? So like that's just how things are. Like Microsoft, I'm sure, like if again they spent $100 billion to buy up all these developers just to start like putting out games. They're not just going to stop that. They're losing to Sony in the console market, but they're winning in terms of the online experience, the digital experience, things like that. And I don't think Jeff...
And I don't think consoles matter too much anymore.
Well, that's the idea, is consoles won't matter eventually. Eventually, it's going to be on your Roku, your Apple TV, or any, like, your TV. Like, you're going to have this stuff, and it's all going to be streaming. So for Microsoft to come in early, and yeah, they might, like... Let's say they bleed money. Let's say, oh, we're losing $100 million a year on this, and we're just like, even though they said that they're spending $1 billion a year on this stuff, on all the different deals and things. Like they're investing this money over the course of 10 years is like a drop in the bucket. Like they're going to continue to do this because they know. I would assume in the next 10 years, we'll see, but they know that this is where the industry is going. They know that eventually everything's going to be streaming and in the cloud and everything else. That's why they're spending all of this money now, because they have a foothold. So by the time Sony is like, oh, wait a minute, we should do that too. I mean, the Sony exec is already saying like, oh, we have to keep PlayStation Plus novel. We have to keep, bringing in different games and doing stuff. Like they know they have to do that too. They're just not doing it as well as Microsoft. So it's like, yeah, Microsoft might be quote unquote losing the console wars because, they're getting, PlayStation's outselling them in Japan and different things like that or whatever, right? That's fine. But what happens when Microsoft has your Game Pass? They have, hey, pay for the Netflix of video games, and you can put it on your Switch. You can put it on your TV. You can put it on and sure, will it ever come to PlayStation? Maybe one day. Who knows? But eventually, if Microsoft Game Pass or whatever they eventually will call it, because I do think marketing will eventually evolve it and things like that. But like, it's gonna be everywhere. Is I think their intention, right? Now, if they can pull it off or whatever, if anyone can pull it off, it's Microsoft that has just billions upon billions of dollars. That's kind of what I'm coming from, is like, we're looking at it in this, it's not this just frozen thing in time. Like, it's not going to be $10 for Game Pass on PC for the next decade. I'm not expecting that. I don't think anyone is. I think by the time 10 years is up, I'm spending, like you were saying, like $20, $30 a month if I want that. But I'm also expecting that a lot of these games are going to start paying off, and a lot of the developers are going to start paying off, and they're going to make it more enticing. Or the industry as a whole is just going to shift to that model. Because the other half of that bet that we had with Jeff is like Sony and Nintendo still have to be selling their games a la carte and still kind of focusing on that, not doing their own Game Passes and their own things, So I don't know. Business-wise, I think that's where Microsoft is like, even if they're losing money, from a business sense, they see the industry and know where it's headed, where they're willing to take that L now to then be like well ingrained in the industry 10 years in the future when everyone else is trying to catch up, and you see, your Uplay trying to want their like streaming services and things like that, which they kind of already are. You have the Uplay Plus, you have the EA Plus, you have all these things, But Microsoft is then going even further and saying, oh, guess what? EA Plus, now it's part of Microsoft. They're doing deals with them. So it's just like, I don't know. Okay, I'll shut up. But that's my rationale. That's why I feel good about the bet. I could be way wrong. Maybe Microsoft goes bankrupt tomorrow. Who knows? But
I think that's literally
I
impossible.
feel like if that happens, we have a bigger problem in the country.
That's going to sink the S&P 500. But
yeah,
I agree with everything you're saying. It's an investment, right? At the end of the day, they are investing. So in an investment, by definition, you are sacrificing the now for future profit, future benefit, right?
So I was interested in something. I went and I did a little like Googling, so we can't say that this is perfect, but using a market share site to kind of compare Microsoft and Sony. So for 2024, Sony, right now, the majority of their profit, 27%, is coming from game and network services. Okay. So that's their number one earner. Number two, 23%, entertainment, technology, and services. 3 is financial services. 4 is pictures. So like movies, right? 5
is it pictures or is it like their photography stuff?
Might be their photography
I think
stuff.
it's their photography stuff.
And then 11% in imaging and sensing solutions and 11% in music. Microsoft.
I think you're making Jeff's point for him. Microsoft's gaming division is very, very small in comparison.
So Microsoft's is their number 3 earner. Give me 1 second. I went too far down. Like way too far down. So Microsoft Office 365 is their top earner.
Yeah. Makes sense. Keeping our country going.
And then the Microsoft Xbox Network monthly active users, their like income from the users that use the Xbox Live service,
which is now tied to Game Pass.
Game Pass. And look at this chart for users as 2020 hit.
Sure.
Like
the chart is going up.
for the people that can.
So it went from the 25 to 50 million mark up to the 125 million mark over the course of 2 years.
Like the thing that we're not talking about either is like, okay, Diablo's on Game Pass now, right? Diablo 4. Whoop-de-doo. That's a small drop in the bucket. But Black Ops 6 is coming out, and that's going to be the first Call of Duty on Game Pass. So yeah, absolutely. Buy it on PlayStation. No problem. But let's say I have an Xbox and I have a PlayStation. And my friends have an Xbox and a PlayStation. And Xbox is, I'm going to put air quotes, free because it's in Game Pass. And you don't have to pay $70 on top of your already like monthly subscription to the online service. That's an easy choice, right? Like, I think that they're making these big bets where it's like Call of Duty will bring in the users. You have your World of Warcraft, which they didn't really talk too much about. So who knows? Maybe that will be an extra thing. But like seeing how they're handling other things, I wouldn't be surprised if suddenly like World of Warcraft is now just a part of it and go for it, you know, or a discount. And then you have your Elder Scrolls 6. So like when I was talking to Jeff about, okay, when do you think Elder Scrolls 6 is coming out? And I think he said 2029. It's like, okay, that's 5 years from now. So in our 10-year bet, we're already halfway through it whenever Elder Scrolls 6 comes out. And you don't think that everyone's going to hop on Xbox and see a giant boost in there, just like Starfield, right? Even though Starfield is like still a bad game and people shouldn't play Starfield. You don't think you're going to see a boost or, you know, that marketing run leading up to it. You don't think you're going to see a just an explosion of console sales. Like, of course you are. And then now it's such a short time where it's like, oh, I can just buy Game Pass and try it out. Or I buy an Xbox. And now it's not an Xbox plus $70. Now it's an Xbox plus the $1 for 14 days to try it out or whatever. And then just pay your monthly thing.
Right.
The other thing you got to think about too, and I would need fact checked on this, but to my knowledge, that's still family share. So like if you're buying it on one console now it's across the board, and it's like Sony has something similar, but Sony you have to do some weird kind of okay, well you save it here and then you can't use this console, you have to use someone else's and stuff. And like Xbox is I think the simplest out of all of them, and I think Steam is the worst in my opinion. In terms of family sharing. But the cool thing with Xbox is like, if you're family sharing, both people can play at the same time with one copy of the game. So it's like, I know Xbox gets a bad rap, especially in the Xbox One era, where it was like, oh, how do you share your game? And then Sony did that famous commercial where they just filmed it 2 seconds before they aired it, where it's like, hand someone the physical copy. That's fine. But I think Xbox has more than made up for that, because now it's like, okay, we'll just share it through the cloud. Like, that's their thing. Like, Candy Crush alone would fund it's I don't think we really understand like what they purchased and how that fits into the overall like mission of Xbox and their cloud. And like, yeah, I understand like Xbox might be like a small portion of it, but their online presence in the cloud and how they interact with people and just, it's just better. Like, it's just bigger and better and faster. And like any way to increase that and get data from it and things like that, it's like having 34 million people playing online or downloading things or doing that stuff and stressing their servers, and they can like that data, that level of data, they don't care about the games. They're getting all that extra, goodness from that stuff. So it's like, it's all interconnected. That's the thing, is it's not, this is bad for the developers. I truly believe Phil Spencer cares about developers deep down. I might be a fool. I like to choose that he does. Do I think that the Microsoft giant cares? No. But do I think that they're business savvy enough to make good deals, or at least enough to get the developers on board so that it furthers everyone's cause? Yeah. I don't know. All right.
Yeah, on that point, one of the other things I initially said was that I think this is good for the gaming industry as a whole, for developers in particular, especially small developers, because in a lot of these circumstances, based on what I was reading, Xbox will fund the development for these games. So they don't have to worry about specific margins that they have to make. I mean, they're still obviously worried about that, but like they know the game will be made because they got the infusion of cash up front, right? So I know that in a lot of circumstances during development, things might go wrong, things might get delayed, and then like you see that it never gets released because they run out of money or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
In this circumstance, Xbox is funding a lot of these indie games to ensure that they will get released and that they will have a platform in which there will be a lot of eyes on it. You mentioned a great example with Justin, right? Like, doesn't typically go for indie games. Why not try it? I'm trying to make
look up the game that he mentioned, but continue.
I'm trying to make my Game Pass worth it. Like Nate said earlier, the way I view it is I need to play like 2 or 3 games a year on Game Pass, and it's paid for itself, right? So I think that's another perspective. I think that's good for people. When you have a giant like Microsoft being able to fund the development for some of these games that might not have worked otherwise, you have that safety net. That's a good thing for me. I feel like that kind of takes the stress off of the studio. And they know that they're going to have a home for their game. They have the cash to make sure that the development is finished. And they are still able to have their own vision. Like Microsoft doesn't have any say over like the development itself, right? So to me, that seems like a win-win. Maybe I'm being naive about it. Maybe there's another factor that I'm not looking at. But from the outset, from my ignorant position, I think that that's great for the gaming industry.
I want to bring one more point forward. And I kind of want to go back to what you were saying, where companies are ahead of the curve on things, right? So I think Microsoft is stepping ahead of the game. They're a profitable company for a reason. They're a household name for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, as much as Jeff disagrees with subscriptions being the way of the future, they're slowly making our way into everything. Like you said, movies, music, TV, entertainment, it's already there. But think about it now, like too, our cars, right? And I know you're going to hate this, but the government's pushing us towards electric cars, right? Like we get discounts and stuff for purchasing electric vehicles. Cars like Tesla and stuff now also have subscriptions for certain features of their vehicle. Like we already had like the entertainment portion of it with like the internet radio and stuff, right? What is it?
GPS.
The GPS, the Sirius XM or whatever, that like, you get the little ad in your car whenever you buy a new car kind of deal. But like if you want the self-driving mode for Tesla, it's a $10,000 package. It's probably going to go to a subscription package in the future where like you can try this out. And then if you really want to keep not having to like, use the steering wheel, you have to pay us, right?
Yep. And that sucks. Like, don't get me wrong.
That's the worst.
I am not saying that that's a good place to be, and I completely agree with Jeff on that. Like, I am 100% against it. However, we're going in that, like, it.
Right.
I'm betting on the direction that we're going.
The reason Game Pass is going to be around in 10 years is because at the end of the day, the consumer focuses what will the consumer tolerate. And we're moving to a world where we're tolerating subscriptions and paying for things and not owning things more and more and more, which means we're going to develop in that direction, which means Game Pass will be here in 10 years. And Jeff, buddy, I know you're listening to this. You should be saving your $100 a year. Because
the thing is, too, is that...
200 a year, yep.
The thing is, as well, is that you can still purchase the game. Right? So that's where I'm a little confused from Jeff's position, because... in terms of him not liking the model, because you have the option.
Yeah.
Like, I could have bought Starfield. You did buy Starfield.
I bought the bump up.
Yeah.
But,
you bought Starfield, so you paid it. I don't own Starfield.
Right.
I just played it on Game Pass.
Well, I don't own Starfield either. That's what.
I
that's what
see.
I'm talking
Okay,
about.
so you paid an extra to play it early.
I own the DLC upgrade for Starfield.
Gotcha.
I don't own the game.
Well, it's another example.
It's a
Here's
perfect example.
Revenue.
They
right?
got $40 off me that I can't
Yeah.
use unless I can subscribe to
You
Game
got
Pass.
shafted.
But yeah, it's a bad game. But
what my point is that if I want to buy the game, I can buy the game. So like after I finished Persona 3, I was like, man, I really want to play Persona 5 again. It wasn't on Game Pass. I'm really considering buying it. I'm sure there's a lot of people that did buy it. Right.
And you have the games going out. So if you're playing a game and you're really liking it, like if Sea of Thieves, whatever, like decided, hey, we're actually taking that off Game Pass. Never happened, but like let's say they did that.
Yep.
I 1,000% would buy a copy of Sea of Thieves at a 20% discount or whatever to put that in my library.
Yep.
I did that with Plague Tale or whatever, like whenever that was going or gone. So there are things where it's like I see where they're going, and I think that's ultimately it, is like it's a long game. Like they have to do that.
Yeah.
I think Nintendo is like, if anyone's more this will probably be, I'm not betting this, Jeff, just as a heads up, but like I would be shocked if like Nintendo didn't like go publisher. You know what I mean? And that sort of thing. Like as things,
I think Nintendo is too much
like,
of a niche. Like they have the kids friendly console.
Yeah, but
you know what I
not
mean?
forever. They have the kid friendly console and they have the handheld stuff, but Steam Deck did very well, and those things are only going to get smaller and better and faster and more powerful. And Nintendo is always behind the curve there. Where like if Microsoft can crack the code, Microsoft's been playing nicer with Nintendo than Sony has. Where it's like if they can crack the code, where like you're getting achievements on a Switch, like you're getting Xbox achievements on a Switch in Minecraft. So like they're already breaching that. They're already made a commercial together for, what was it, Rocket League or something like that, or Fortnite, where it's like they're already kind of stoking the fires of that partnership, where like eventually you want to talk about business, it's going to be more profitable for Nintendo to become a publisher and just have Microsoft take care of that stuff. Like it's going to happen. And like, because between Nintendo and Microsoft, Microsoft makes a lot more money. Like if you're talking just giants in business, Microsoft will eat Nintendo before Nintendo eats Microsoft or Sony or whatever. So it's like you want to talk about a hellscape. There are hellscapes out there that are even worse. But like even physical discs, you don't get the game. Like it's not like you can buy a game now, download it, and it's like, here's the game. Like you still have to connect to an online service. Like Destiny is an odd thing because Destiny is like an online multiplayer thing. But it's like, it's 300 gigs. It's like 299 gigabytes to download the new Destiny.
I remember like whenever I was towards the end of my GameStop career that I had a regular customer in my store who did not have like good internet service out where they live, so they could not play online games, and they couldn't always connect online. So they would have to ask whenever a new game come out, like they would call the store whenever they were interested in a new release, and they would ask me if they can play it without having to connect to the internet. Like, so there are still people out there, and I guarantee you he's probably in a place now where he doesn't have to worry about that anymore because Cranberry's like developed, right? Like the area that
but look at Alaska. Look at all these places where it's like you have a very limited amount of gigs.
There's still a ton of places. Like even going up to the cabin, like, you know, it's a whole nother world up there.
But my point is, if companies cared about that,
Yeah.
they would have a workaround or something. But they have a whiteboard, they have a line, and it says, you know what? The majority of the population has this much bandwidth or this much space or this much whatever, that we're comfortable selling this content like this. And other people need to catch up. Like, like that's just how it is. Like I'm not saying that's good. I'm just saying that's the trend. That's where the industry is going. That's what I'm betting on. I'm not betting on like Microsoft doing the right thing or video games being a nice, friendly place. I'm betting on, look at every other form of entertainment and media. Like, you're telling me that if TikTok didn't say, guess what? You can watch 30 reels a day or whatever it is, or pay us $1 a month and it's unlimited. Would people riot in the streets? Yes.
Would people pay the
If
dollar?
they stuck to their guns, would they pay the $1? Yes. Maybe not at first because, I'll just go to YouTube. I'll just go to Spotify, or not Spotify, Snapchat, or I'll go to Instagram. Sure. How long till all of those companies do the exact same thing? Like, they're always looking to monetize stuff. And, like, people would be very, very upset until suddenly it's like, yeah, all right. Because it's like, at what point is like entertainment just worth the dollar, which is bad for the customer. So like, it's not all roses. I'm not saying that like it's fantastic, but what I'm saying is like, if you're first and you command it now, and you're the only player, you set the rules. So why wouldn't Microsoft jump in, do all of this, spend $1 billion a year to make their own rules and set the guidelines? Because what other company has the capital to come in and disrupt it? Maybe Epic. Maybe. And even then, I'm not convinced Microsoft wasn't thinking about how to buy Epic. But
I don't think Epic's anywhere close.
Epic makes a lot of money with Fortnite, dude. Like a lot of money. But here's a perfect example. It's like Fortnite's like, you talk to people that were like super into Fortnite, like my nephew and like, that age group is now moving on. And you know what they're moving on to? Call of freaking Duty. You know who has that? Microsoft.
Yeah, Call of Duty. We were talking about this earlier. I think just completely like recession proof. Like if you have
got good ones, you got bad ones. Yeah,
it doesn't matter though. The sales are consistent for Call of Duty.
Same thing with
in
Madden.
terms of like overall, it is always a new Call of Duty comes out. It's in the top whatever sales.
We had those customers come into Xbox or into GameStop, and it was. They come in one time a year, and it's buying the new Call of Duty. You're buying the new Madden.
Your point is absolutely correct. Where you have Call of Duty, you have Blizzard, you have all these properties.
Yeah.
Elder Scrolls is going to come out, like you said. Those are just safe bets to make. Like I am going to bet on the side of Elder Scrolls 6.
Real quick, reported revenue in 2023 for Epic Games, 5.628 or $5,628 million, right? Xbox 2020.
Wait, I'm sorry. What?
Yeah, it was
So that's
weird.
That's $5 billion.
Yeah, it's $5 billion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's how Google had it written.
Yeah. Okay.
Microsoft, $211.9 billion.
But
211.
that's as a company.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Is like,
But you're not looking at, like you were comparing, you were saying Microsoft a company, Epic a company. Like, yes, their game divisions are probably similar.
Yeah.
Probably not, but I'm not looking that up. Their game divisions might be similar, but as a company, if Microsoft really wanted to say Epic, they would say, here's what you made in 2023. We'll pay you 14 times this, and you just come over here.
I think that the point too is like, let's say Game Pass is a terrible model and doesn't work. Microsoft has the capital to force it to sustain it for a decade easily. Like
you're gonna do it for the next 5 years because
at least
you have to like
at least
even if consoles like Microsoft's going to do one more console,
right.
So automatically
one would think that it would be for the next console.
Exactly.
So if you even like, let's say worst case scenario, it's terrible. It's super. They're bleeding money out of it. They have the capital to completely support it through the next generation easily.
Even if they kill it off halfway
I think it's a good
through
bet.
the next generation, you're still in the 10-year mark, and I feel.
I was about to
completely
say
fine.
how like every generation of consoles somewhere close to 10 years. So
Generally speaking, yeah. And like if rumors are true about the PlayStation Pro and different things like that, they might eke out a little bit more. And you have like the Switch 2 coming next year, and there's always that.
They always
leapfrog.
have that. Yeah.
Yeah, but Microsoft is going to have another console.
And
like
I think Nintendo is always like 2 years ahead of the curve because I feel like the Wii U came out before the 360.
It's in the middle of the yeah. I don't know. I feel good about the bet. I don't feel good about like the future state, but that wasn't what the bet was. No. You know what I mean? Like, I think companies will always be greedy, and I think that...
To be fair...
Is humanity going to get worse? Yes.
Yeah.
Am I going to win $1,000 off Jeff? Also, yes.
Yeah, like, and what that's worth in the 10 years, maybe not a lot, but I don't know.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, like, all your ad... Like, and Spotify does this where it's like, okay, here's the ad version, here's the Netflix, or like Hulu does, like, with ads, without ads, different things like that.
Yep.
I thought I would hate ads. But in all honesty, it's like, you know what? I can get up, I can stretch, I can put baby down, I can get a snack, I can do whatever. Ads are fine. But you don't think that they're going to have that in video games? You don't think you're going to be driving your Forza and you have like dynamic real-time billboards as you're driving around for the toothpaste or the next...
Cool, dude, honestly.
Yeah, but they've already done that before, before it was even a thing.
It's just product placement, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So like, they're
people
going to
hate
figure it
product
out.
placement. I think it's immersive.
They're going to figure
It's
it
like,
out.
oh, this is real. This is like a real thing. Like if I was driving on the road, I would actually see something like this.
Yeah.
Now, if it was like shit is flashing on the screen in front of me, that's different.
But,
like you have to like implement it in a creative way in the game.
Do I have faith in the corporate D&Ds
Right? They might
to
not.
do that?
They might.
No.
They might fuck me. They might just say your car stops and you must
You're
watch
getting
this
that.
ad.
Like you're literally getting that now. You turn on Battlefield. What's the first thing you see?
Battle Pass or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
Call of Duty. You can't even jump into a game, and so you click through a million menus of like
it's
Battle Pass
horrible.
and stuff, and they make it where it's like you're seeing more Battle Pass and more things you can buy than like how do I play the freaking game. So it's like it's same with Fortnite and everything else. We're getting those commercials already. Like you're getting it every time. Every time you switch the game and you have the splash screen, the loading screen, and it's the Battle Pass or the next cool gun or the next cool skin, you have that. So it's like, I don't know. They will find a way. And again, we keep saying Game Pass. I want to state for the record, it doesn't have to be called Game Pass. It is Microsoft's streaming service that includes video games. Like that is the thing. They are going to keep it. They might make it more, they might incorporate, I don't know, friggin' music or something too. But anyway. Moving on.
Yeah. I mean, staying in the same realm, I think. Did you watch State of Play? Did you see that at all?
I did not. But
Okay,
honestly, like I play like 6 games anymore.
You ain't gonna play any of these. You might play one. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe Conquer. We'll touch that quickly, but PlayStation had their State of Play yesterday, as of time of recording, and it was like 30 minutes. They showed 14 games, I think you said.
That's what they said.
I guess I'll start. So the only thing that caught my eye was the first. They started out with like pretty much the only thing that was relevant, in my opinion, which was Conquered, which is so they had the cinematic. Apparently they announced this before, but I just couldn't. I had no recollection of it. It's a 5v5 shooter. Tyler kins it to an Overwatch-esque game, but they had this cinematic at the beginning, and it looks sweet, very Guardians of the Galaxy-esque. Like the voice acting was great; it looked fantastic, even though it was CGI, obviously. The characters were cool. I think they really did a great job of showcasing like the personality of the characters in a 5-minute segment, which is always very impressive when you don't get a lot of time. So I was like, man, this looks super sick. And then they said it was a 5v5 shooter, and then I was super disappointed. And then I was like, I came around on it a little bit because I was like, okay, I did like Overwatch when it came out. I think it's a good premise. I think there is something there in terms of like hero-based first-person shooter-esque, competitive game. So, they were talking about it. They were talking about some of the things they're implementing in the game. So I was intrigued. I would definitely play it if it was free to play, but yeah, that was the thing. It does make a lot of sense. They were talking about they're going to release these like cinematics on a weekly basis or something to incorporate like the characterization.
Oh,
which I think
missed that. They said that.
Yeah, I think something like that. Like that's so important because that's how Overwatch became successful. They really invested in the characters, even though there's no story mode or anything like that.
It was all environmental storytelling that they
right.
pieced together.
I think if they can do this better, even through like cinematics, that is the way to success with this. Because if you get people invested into the characters, invested into the universe, I think you'll draw in those. Like the competitive people will play it anyways if it's good gameplay. But then you get that extra boost of the player base if they're invested.
It's on PC too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what I don't understand about the PlayStation Plus. That's what I'm curious about. Because that's what you were mentioning. Is that you would need PlayStation Plus to play it?
I was saying that for God of War.
I know that, but Nate said for this as well.
For Concord, you're going to have the online subscription service that allows you to play online games.
Even on PC.
I don't know about PC.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine.
On Sony's console.
Right.
Just like on Xbox.
Right.
With the exception of Fortnite, apparently. You need Xbox Live to play online with Xbox. You have features through like Xbox Live Silver or whatever, the free version, where like you can send messages to people and whatnot, but you can't play games.
Right. Yeah. So I would be shocked on PC. I don't even know how they would do that on PC, but
I'm guaranteeing you that if they did it on PC, they have other options. They would just not play it.
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. They would just play Overwatch. So it's like,
Or there's that new Marvel one that came out too that looks like Overwatch. I don't remember what it's called.
They showcased that at this as well.
It's out on PC, I thought, isn't it?
It might be beta or something.
I don't know. I thought I saw Jeff's friend Greg playing it one day or something.
I do forget what it's called, but they showcased that in the state of play. It looked horrible to me. It looked so bad. It looked like terrible Overwatch. The Marvel one that we're talking about, that looked terrible. I think Conquer looked a million times better. And then showcasing those at the same thing, and they're coming out at the same time or something like that.
The beta is
wild.
both in July.
Yeah,
Both of the betas are in
wild.
July. Yeah.
What a play. But I think like I said yesterday, from the marketing perspective, I feel like if you have the name Marvel behind anything you're doing, you just feel invincible.
Yeah.
That people are going to play it. They see Spider-Man, they're going to play it, or they see whatever, you know?
Yep. And especially when it's not like a Twitch shooter type of thing. Like it's not a Valorant. Like it's like a bullet spongy, just character shooter type of thing. So like you're not even getting the competitive people for that per se, right? Like you're not getting the Valorant players, the CSGO players and stuff like that. You're getting the people that love Spider-Man. You're getting the people that love Overwatch type gameplay.
It doesn't. That's a horror. I would have done a MOBA. I thought it was going to be more like Smite, which is like the third person MOBA on consoles. I would have went that direction. That makes like you have unique heroes, obviously with comic book characters that fit really well into that MOBA model, where you have a core set of abilities, and it's not a shooter per se because obviously you have melee and ranged components.
Yeah.
Very much like I would say a majority of comic book characters are melee.
There's a part of me that thinks that Marvel puts out games like this not because of the desire to like make money on these games, but to kind of build like the MCU and the comics and stuff and expand people's horizons on new characters. So like for instance, like Doctor Strange was a character that was in like 3 comics, right? One of my favorite characters of all time. The only reason I knew about him when I was a kid is because I was specifically looking for like superheroes from Pennsylvania, right? Because for some reason I wanted to know what superheroes lived near us, and like he teams up with Spider-Man and he has like his own thing. Spider-Man teams up with everybody, but like so Doctor Strange like started getting introduced in like different media and stuff, and then now he's got his own movie. Now he's all over the place. He's a Fortnite character. He's whatever. A lot of characters from Doctor Strange's universe and some of like the other like niche like Marvel universes are now being introduced in this new Overwatch style game, and then they're going to start showing up in movies pretty soon. People are going to be familiar with them. Just like, not to get back to like my other hobby, but like the Scar is in every video game. Everybody knows what the Scar is, right?
Assault rifle.
The
for
gun.
people that
Yeah,
don't
the
know.
gun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the gun.
The gun.
Right.
Yeah, not the evil
so, like,
lion.
everybody knows what a Scar is. Like even if like it's an assault rifle in Fortnite, people know what the Scar is. It's not that crazy expensive of a gun, but because it's used in movies and video games and stuff, it's like $3,400 and climbing annually, because it's iconic. You know what I mean? So Marvel is taking like these games and introducing their future consumers to these new characters and stuff. So like, oh, I really like this character in the game. Marvel's like, oh yeah, this person showed up on like episode or in like issue 156 and 157 of this thing back in the 80s, but now we can turn it into a couple $1 million because this was in Fortnite.
Like, oh, you like Guardians of the Galaxy? You know, like
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And half the Guardians, well, I shouldn't say half, but there's like Guardians that aren't even in like the new Guardians of the Galaxy, and it doesn't matter because like now they've got you, and everybody wants Rocky Raccoon, Groot. Like,
yep. Talk about like I don't even think Guardians of the Galaxy was like a successful comic.
I don't think so either.
Right. And then exactly. So that's a good point. I just don't feel like based on what I saw, I couldn't imagine people playing like they will because it's Marvel, but like to have this as a vehicle to introduce new characters seems really strange. But I think you're spot on because at the end of this trailer, they showed female Galactus and then a shot of another character who I didn't know what it was. So obviously they're teasing something of some type of storytelling there. So interesting, right? I know that Galactus is supposed to be like the big villain of this next phase of Marvel, even though I'm not keeping up with it at all. Like the cinematic. I thought so. That's what the rumor is, I guess. Sure. Maybe not. Maybe I'm totally off, but maybe it's Doctor Doom. Actually, I don't know. Anyways, I think that's a good point. But it looked like garbage, so I would be shocked. Why would anyone play that?
I don't want to say it looked like garbage, but it didn't look
I thought
inspired
it looked like garbage. They copy and paste Overwatch build. Like, who's the Reaver? Is that a guy from Overwatch?
Reaper
was the guy
I
with
think
the
they
shotguns.
retired
The shotguns.
him. They retired him. I think they got rid of him.
Okay, Overwatch 1.
Sure.
So
yeah,
I forget which character was. Literally same exact ult. Same exact noise, I think. The hit markers are like the same noise from over. Like, it's literally copy and paste. It's insane. I was like, wow, what low effort garbage is this? It didn't look good at all to me.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, it's cel shaded. I like the comic book look, but I agree with you. The UI and like that sort of thing was very like.
It just doesn't fit a shooter genre. It's a weird combination.
Yeah. Well, look, they're doing card games and
just my opinion.
Everything else.
Well,
like,
Marvel Snap's doing really well.
Yeah, sure.
I mean,
so why not branch
vehicle.
out?
Because that's a great genre for the comic book. You know, a card game has unique characters with unique abilities. That's right up the comic book's alley. You know, you can really, like people will think about, oh, I can't wait till they add X character. I wonder what abilities they'll have. And then you can tie that into the flavor of the character. Like, it just melds very well together.
But if Marvel teamed up with Blizzard and they were like, hey, we're going to do like a team, like a Blizzard X Marvel Overwatch thing, and they pulled all them in, it'd be like the same thing. So like, I don't know. I get why do it, but it just boggles my mind that like your betas are going to be the same month. You're going to put them on place like it's
just cannibalizing each other.
Yeah, it seems like it, but.
Anyways, some other announcements. God of War PC, which we knew was coming.
Yeah,
it's gonna be good. Dynasty Warriors, which I haven't seen in forever. Have you played? Did you play Dynasty War? Any of the Dynasty Warriors?
I did when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan
They're
of like
terrible.
Yeah,
I think they're awful games.
This looks like
there are people that love them, and if you love them, like I appreciate your desire to swing a sword and hit 132 people, but like.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah. No. That's fair. If you're into it,
when games talk about like, difficult AI, I don't think of like Dynasty Warriors.
Yeah.
Dynasty Warriors is just, can they overwhelm you with zombies that are skinned up one way or another? And
yeah, it looked bad. Like the graphically, it did not. But like again, you're putting 200, 300 units.
It's always
running
funny.
In. Yeah.
Like the back row is just like at 10 frames because it's just like so many people.
Yeah.
And just like one guy. Yeah. I mean, I guess they have like 1 million Dynasty Warriors, so people were buying them.
They had them on DS. 3DS had
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like there's that. There just wasn't a lot.
Infinity
like, there's 14
Nikki.
games. Sure.
I said Power World for girls.
Yeah.
That was the...
Yeah, it looked like a photo sim, like anime thing.
Yeah, like little Pokemon.
What's the one that you said kept looking like a Dark Souls-esque thing?
Ballad of Antar.
Yeah, that
Antaria.
looked interesting.
Yeah, that screamed Jeff to me, like just the atmosphere. It's got to be a Souls-like, just based on like the boss design and stuff.
Yeah.
I saw. I don't know if they didn't show a lot of. I think they showed a little gameplay,
Yeah, they
maybe.
did. Yeah.
So there's like some dodging and stuff, but I mean, you know how we feel about Souls-like, so it's not like we're really excited. But maybe other people might be excited.
If
for
it
that.
even is, who knows? Like,
Yeah,
we'll
it
see.
was kind of difficult for me to tell, but
Yeah.
VR stuff. We talked about Marvel. Where Winds Meet, which is like the Japanese samurai, super bland, like vanilla
I feel
action game. It looked like. I don't know. I wasn't very impressed by that.
I feel bad because I don't want to be like, oh, feudal Japan is so overplayed and done. But it's like what was once like this is gonna be a really cool setting. It seems like there's like 12 games out in the past year that is in that setting, and I'm like getting less and less. Like when Assassin's Creed was like, oh, it's like I couldn't care less now. Now I might be eating my words, it might be a fun game and stuff, but it's just like they're all just bleeding together. Where I'm like, I can't keep track of like this is Tsushima, this is what's the other one that's like an actual. Is Tsushima the soul? That's not.
Ghost of Tsushima is,
but that's not the Souls like. What's the Souls like?
Sekiro.
Yep.
So it's like all these different ones, and it's just like, and I understand those came out.
It's
before.
like World War II. Whenever we were growing up, everything was based
or
on World
zombies,
War II.
or yeah.
I agree.
Anyway.
Yeah, I know. Until Dawn remake, I guess, or remaster.
Yeah, a lot of remakes. Silent Hill 2 remake.
Yeah, which I never played either of those. You play either of those?
I've not played Silent Hill. I've always wanted to like download and play one just to like understand what people liked about it. But
Here's your chance, dude.
But
Silent Hill 2
they call it Silent Hill 2 remake,
yeah.
but like it looked bad, like graphically, and like I know it's not always about graphics, but in a day when like Resident Evil 2 and 4 are like, I would argue, masterpieces, it's like you gotta up your game. You can't just be like, here's a new coat of paint, and maybe they did
Alan
more than
Wake
that, but yeah,
Looked really great.
Yeah.
Monster Hunter Wilds, which I guess technically a big. They showed gameplay for that.
at like 10 frames a
At
second.
10 frames a second, which hey, maybe that doesn't bother some people, but for me, for an action game, like that's.
And they
That's
showed
rough, right?
gameplay, and it's exactly the same as Worlds, where you hit it with the sword, and it just eats the sword without
But the
responding.
Worlds did well.
Oh yeah,
Didn't
people
it?
love those
Yeah,
games, and they'll play them.
They all do. And I enjoyed them too for a while there, but like you can only kill the same dinosaur so many times, you get the same suit of armor so many times. And then like they always talk about like being able to play with friends, and you can, but there's like level restrictions, and
There's no there's not truly like a strategy. Like it's like, yeah, you're hitting this thing over and over again, but like I honestly thought Dauntless felt better from a combat
to
standpoint.
be honest
than-
with you, it's Cabela's for nerds. Like it really is. Think about it. Like
Sure.
they make shooting games, like hunting games
yeah.
that are labeled by like Cabela's and stuff. There's a group of people that buy them. They wouldn't keep selling them if people didn't buy them. It's a very small group of people. they buy
This
'em.
is a hot take, but if they made a Monster Hunter that was a little bit more like Evolve, where like if you're a group of people and you're all doing your own thing, so like you have your tracker and your spotter, like all these different kind of like classes, so to speak, to bring down these big behemoths, where it's like, yeah, you might not be able to hit hard, but you can like tranquilize them, or you can like, you know, like cripple them, or you could do different things to actually, and like have your attacks or your like hits. Like we're at the point now where every hit from a sword should leave a sword mark. How can you like shoot guns and have all the different decals? Like it doesn't have to be like crazy, but just show me some sort of like effect. I'm swinging this massive blade, and the monster just is like, "Bruh." Like that's it. And then eventually, after you do that 25 freaking times, his tail falls off. But it's not like this cinematic like cool aha moment. It's like, cool, I got a tail.
He falls on the ground and he wiggles a little
Yeah,
bit.
whatever. I mean, but what I'm saying is that was Monster Hunter Worlds, and even if you want to say, okay, that came out in 2016 or whatever that was, and say that was back then. Fast forward, 5, 6, 7 years, and it's exactly the same, or at least from the very brief trailer we saw. Visually, like, cool. It's a different area, but like it just looked the same, man. I don't know.
I'd be curious to see if Monster Hunter fans were impressed by that.
Yeah.
I guess they're in at this point where it's like they know what they're in for,
just
and that's just
grinding
more
it,
of the
yeah.
same. And Maybe that's what they like. I, as an outsider, I can only share my perspective where I'm just like, so other games that look like I would much rather play Horizon with metal beasts, taking them like that just looks way better and might feel way better. But that's like fluidity and weightiness, right? Which I think is what you're talking about.
Yep.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, like, how's it any different than Diablo, where you're just grinding the same boss over and over again to hopefully get a different drop of
but
whatever.
Diablo looks good.
I think frame by frame Monster Hunter looks good. I just think that
I don't know. When you have an action game that's at 30 frames, maybe I'm just a snob. That's just tough for me.
Yeah. Well.
So I did see, I looked at the state of playlist real quick, and I did see that they announced Path of Exile 2 as well. Mm-hmm. So speaking Diablo, do we know if Path of Exile has character creation in it?
They showed a little bit of it. So like Path of Exile has been open for a while. Like they've been showing that since 2 years ago, something like that.
Like a year ago at least.
Yeah, so it's going to be a little bit more expanded. I don't know if it's
I think it was
like
more that
crazy.
they announced that it was going to be on PlayStation, like launch.
Yeah. I don't know how much character. Probably.
I just remember like the first one, it had so much stuff in it. But if I wanted to play a character, I had to look like every other person unless I paid money or like my gear was different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I like the individuality in games. That's why the cosmetics and stuff always get me. But
which I think
that makes sense.
Diablo typically does pretty well with that, because I think you can mix and match a lot of their stuff and it looks good. But
Diablo just isn't feeling good. Like I was super excited for like the weightiness of Diablo 4, and the campaign was a blast. I enjoyed running through that. The cinematics and stuff were cool. Don't care about it now.
Yeah, I mean, I liked the vampire season, and apparently this season's fairly good from what Kyle's saying. So I still need to play it, but I don't know, like Path of Exile 2 looks like it's a little bit more, honestly, like the Diablo that I was hoping for, as far as like, it looks grittier, it looks darker, the camera's pulled back more. It seems like when you're hitting things, like creatures are crumpling, grounds, blowing out. Like it just does seem a little bit more gritty and impactful, so to speak.
And
so
with Path of Exile, you're always progressing. I feel like in Diablo, you're not always progressing. Like it felt like a slog to get new abilities, and the new abilities didn't always feel great, especially like whenever your new ability was like a shout, like on the barbarian. Like
yeah.
I noticed that in the trailer of Path of Exile 2, it seemed a lot more linear in terms of like the zones they were progressing through were pretty straightforward.
I feel like I played the first one only for a little bit, and it was still kind of linear. Like you did a lot of like scene transitioning. Like you'd walk down like this beach, and then you'd transition to like a cliffside, and then you transition to like a different part of the cliffside, and it would like load the map. Whereas Diablo 3 did that too. Like the zones were pretty big, but you transitioned. Diablo 4 was seamless. I like the idea of it. Execution wasn't fantastic.
It's completely inconsequential now.
I think I'd rather just have the linear state.
Yeah.
Because like you said, you're just teleporting all over the place anyways at this point, right?
Diablo,
like
the end game is teleporting from dungeon to dungeon.
Yeah.
And just going in.
The blood rain.
It was a quality of life thing to teleport to the dungeon versus having to like start a nightmare dungeon and then travel to it. People were begging, can we just, and then the next begging was, can you just go into the dungeon? Because before it was like, you could teleport to the dungeon, but you're outside of it, and then you have to go back into it.
Yep.
So it's just like, Path of Exile, like for me, and this is why I still think Diablo 3 overall is a better game, is it still had kind of the, just the random made maps and different things like that. And it was all,
you couldn't memorize
like
a path.
Yeah.
So like even though like the scenery was monotonous, different elite, and I know different elites and stuff can show up in like Diablo 4, but like every time you go into a dungeon in Diablo 4, it's the exact same path to get to the boss, the exact same path to find the items, the exact same path to, so like for speedrunners and stuff, I'm sure that's great. For people like Kyle who getting to the objective and getting the achievement or the season, like, a cosmetic is what drives them, right?
Yeah.
Like that's great because it saves you time. For the people that want like the act of going through it, finding it and discovering it.
Like I loved just every 100th thing in Diablo. It's like, I'm in a sewer, but oh my gosh, there's a pink unicorn that's all bloody coming at me or whatever. Like those really weird like builds that they came out with. But yeah, I don't know. Path of Exile looks really good to me, so like I'm excited for it. But I think John, you were saying it's like, okay, well, they're not doing early access until the end of the year, and just letting Diablo get better and better and bigger.
Yeah,
and
if they were able to release this when Diablo was going through their downswing, obviously, like season 1, man, they would have just ate their lunch.
I don't think they're worried about it.
Damn, yeah, maybe like it seems to me that they are just so confident in their product that they're just gonna crush Diablo, which could be the case. Like, I am curious about Path of Exile to compare the two, right?
Path of Exile was free.
Path of Exile
Like,
is free to play, and I think 2 is going to be as well.
Wow.
Because once again, they're a company that does their stuff off of cosmetics.
Yep. Well, which goes to your point where it's like, if you want to look different, you got to pay us, right? So that's
But
fair.
like on the surface, that's like, oh, I'm against that. I just want to pay for it and play. But like Diablo has that. Like Diablo is still making you pay for it. Like every time Diablo was running poorly or didn't work or whatever, you better believe their store was 100% okay, up for business, man.
Right.
I could buy skins like it was nothing, but could I get into a game? Heck no. So like, I don't know. State of Play was disappointing. Oh, Astrobot was also
was the last
fairly
thing.
cool looking.
That was cool. I did like the implementation of like their exclusive games
Yeah.
as like little characters. But yeah, that's like a its own
A lot of
thing.
people were excited about it, and like there is some
guess.
leaderboard stuff that you could kind of do.
But that's not nobody's buying a PS5 for that.
I think the biggest disappointment was the rumor was we would finally get to see Wolverine. And
I see.
And
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
that was going to be like the last thing.
Yeah.
And boy, was it not.
No. Well, PlayStation has like a summer thing coming up, right?
Sure.
So I think that's what they're saving a lot of.
That's when
stuff
they
for.
did Spider-Man 2, right? They did like that
Correct.
extended thing.
That was like a 30-minute
Yeah.
mission. Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that.
It was literally the exact same mission from Uncharted 4. Like the same.
On the water and stuff?
Yeah. It's just like it's the
Chasing
same.
boats?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah, State of Play.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Just only 30 minutes.
Right, yeah. I think Jeff was saying something along the lines that it was downgraded from a something to a State of Play or something. Like, I guess. I don't know. But
Well, I don't think Sony's putting out any first-party stuff. I think they're done.
for the year?
Like as far as like triple, like you're not gonna
Yeah.
get like a God of War or anything out of it.
No.
Yeah,
Yeah, so, I mean, that makes sense.
but
But, yeah, anyways.
you got Call of Duty coming out and Game Pass, and I'm just Microsoft could do some work.
I felt
this
so
year.
old. I was on my Steam wish list the other day, and I was clicking through, and I had to double back, like, because I saw Call of Duty come up, and I just take next in queue, and then I registered what it said in my brain, and I went back, and it's Black Ops freaking 6.
Yeah,
Like,
well, we were
yeah.
talking about that because
Same.
I remember 4 coming out because they did 4 Roman numeral 1s.
Right.
And I was like, that's just
That was
what
so
are you
dumb.
doing?
Yeah. Well, that's just incorrect, right? Isn't it?
Correct,
V,
yeah.
Isn't it IV?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they did that, and then Black Ops 5 was actually just Cold War,
Right.
which was not anything to write home about.
No.
And then now they're just like okay, we'll do 6.
Dude, I remember Black Ops 1.
They had
a great game.
Bill Clinton was in the trailer
Which one?
in Black Ops 6.
I mean, that's going back to their roots because,
Yeah.
like, Black Ops 1 was like JFK
Yep.
and
They had Bill
Castro.
Clinton, George Bush.
That's hilarious. Yeah. That's very classic.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we'll see. That's actually soon. That's, I think, this coming week.
what?
The reveal for it or whatever. I think it's this week. So we might have something to talk about
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense.
next episode. Yeah.
Anyways, I know on the list you had you were watching some Tekken stuff, so I don't know if you want to address that quickly.
I don't want to get super into. Okay,
Yeah.
I watched the Tekken Bloodlines on Netflix,
That's the anime or the movie?
the anime,
Okay.
and then there's Tekken the movie, and then I found out that there's also Tekken the movie 2, and it's like the artwork for the movie is different than what I think it's called Kazuya's Revenge.
That
So
sounds about right.
Tekken 2 Kazuya's Revenge, but it's a prequel, but all the original characters are in it. And I couldn't stomach the second one. I was like, I'm not going to watch it. But I watched the first live action movie, so you guys don't have to. And let me tell you, and I was sending you like screenshots and videos and stuff. But Tekken like is basically just like, hey, King of Iron Fist tournament. You have Heihachi, Mishima Zaibatsu. It's a whole thing. Well, turns out that this is like a almost like post-apocalyptic World War ending thing, and the entire world is divided into corporations, and one of those corporations is the Tekken Corporation. And Jin is like a net runner.
Oh my God.
And it's just this really weird thing. And he goes into like a cage match with like martial law, who's like just a huge jerk. And you hear about Paul Phoenix, but to bump up martial law's credit is like you hear on a TV in the background, it's like, yeah, martial law kicked Paul Phoenix's butt in 26 seconds. And I'm just like, well, that's not canon at all. And then you go in and basically like Jin comes in. He's like this like fighter, but he's Kazuya's son because Kazuya forced himself on his mom at some point. So like, that's completely gone. But then Kazuya and Heihachi are like running the company together.
Oh God.
But then Kazuya like betrays Heihachi and just blows him up. And
That sounds more
Heihachi's like this honorable guy. It's wild. And then it's all for ratings. And then Kazuya finds out that like, whenever we killed somebody, ratings went through the roof. So now this is just straight up Mortal Kombat, and it's like kill people. It's to the death, and it's the most bizarre thing I ever saw. Christy Montero is a Brazilian capoeira fighter. Not in this. She's a white chick that Jin's like macking on, right? You remember Kara? Why would you? She's just a character in this movie. That's Jin's girlfriend.
Wait, what?
So he bones Kara in an alley, fights martial law, gets into the tournament, and the first thing he does is mac on this other chick.
Oh, you know
just
Jin,
like,
dude, just the womanizer.
This is terrible.
Classic.
Steve Fox is a bald fighter promoter who turns into Jin's manager. No King. No, like Yoshimitsu's
How can
there.
you not have
and
King?
it's-
That's crazy.
He's
like the most recognized. He's like one of the most recognizable guys.
It is wild, man. It is so wild. It is such a bad movie.
That's crazy.
It got 6 reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, 0%. It's really bad. Don't watch it. And then Tekken Bloodlines anime. I thought it was fine. I think it was actually fairly faithful to like what I consider like the canon. However, it's Tekken 3. And they're bringing in like Leroy. They're bringing in like all of these like newer characters because it's like, well, it's got to bring the new guys. And it didn't really make sense and didn't really fit well, and it just kind of abruptly ended. But the thing that I hated more than anything, and maybe this isn't an anime thing, and this is maybe why I don't like anime, is I would watch something and every episode, especially towards like maybe the last 3, was just flashbacks to the first 3 episodes over and over. And the problem is, it's one thing to say like a flashback of like the first episode and it's like, it's coming full circle. But Jin's flashing back to stuff that Heihachi just said to him like 5 minutes ago. And from both of you kind of smiling, that's probably an anime bullshit thing. And that's annoying.
Yeah, so like on all the anime like streaming services, they have a skip intro and a skip recap button.
But it's not. Wait, a skip recap in the middle of episodes?
No. So maybe it's because it's like a Netflix anime, but the recap's always the first 2 minutes. Then the intro is the next 2 minutes.
I'm not saying
and
this
then you
is
watch
a recap.
the show.
I'm talking Heihachi would be like, you have to fight as a Mishima and win as a Mishima. I might have heard that line 20 freaking times on that because every time like Jin fights someone and by the way, real quick, Brian Fury is the King of Iron Fist champion of the live action movie. That's the main bad guy. Okay, going back to the Tekken.
Didn't see that coming.
Yeah, going back to the anime. Like every time Jin's like fighting and he gets like punched, it fades out and it's either June talking about like be a pacifist and only fight when you need to and offense and defense, blah, blah, blah. Or Heihachi saying like, you got to man up and beat this dude. And it just fades to those every single time. And it's like, you just said that. Heihachi like literally was just like, you got to draw out Ogre. And then 5 minutes goes by and Jin's fighting King. And then King beats the snot out of him. And then Heihachi comes back in his head. He's like, you gotta fight Ogre. And then he rallies. But it's like every episode, and it was so bad. And King was just destroying people. But King only growled once. Like, you know how like his Jaguar growl? Everything else was just a dude.
Oh, he's talking?
He wasn't talking, but you would hear him like grunt as a guy. It was never like the Jaguar sound. But like every fight, Jim would like help people up, and he like just beat the living crap out of Horang. And it was like, winner buys beers, and like gets him back in there and everything. And like the only thing I think they did, two things that I really liked, is Paul was very well respected. So I think that was good, because I think everyone was just like, this guy's no joke. Like he's a tough fighter. So I thought that was really cool. And I like the idea. So June fought Ogre, lost, got thrown in a burning building and died. So that's kind of how like she disappeared. Spoiler, she's in Tekken 8, so I don't know. I guess she survived. But that's how Ogre killed her. So that's why like Jin goes and trains, and he's like, I want fire on my pant leg. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. Like that's a cool, that's a cool thing.
Tekken 3 design,
yeah. So I thought that was like a neat thing of like, yeah, I could see like that's my headcanon for why he wants
Sounds
fire.
like the main character.
Yeah, but in the live action, this is the last thing I'll say. In the live action, his flames are blue, which to be fair is an alt costume in Tekken 3, so I'll let that pass. But he was just given to it because it's like, this is your costume now, own it. And then Steve Fox hands him his gloves. Is like, yeah, these are my old gloves. They're pretty beat up, but your hands are also beat up, so maybe use these. Also, Nina and Anna are just like, literally, like, I thought I was watching like a porno for like a brief second, where it's like, you see Kazuya in his bed, and Anna and Nina crawl up on him. And it's like...
Wait, in the live action?
In the live action one.
So
it's really
weird.
bad. It's so bad, man. I don't know. Everyone should watch... Like, if I was going to assign you something to watch, it would 1,000% be the... Like, because it's 90 minutes. But now that you know the history of everything and whatnot, it is beyond horrible.
Bad, yeah.
I don't think I've seen a worse... Like, all the Mortal Kombats are better. And as cheesy and bad as they are, every single one of them is better. Anyway, that was my Tekken thing. I went down
impressive.
a dark Tekken hole.
Yeah,
It was
no,
not good.
I know you wanted to get that off your chest.
Yeah. It sucked.
Sorry you went through that, buddy.
Yeah. That's all right. Anyway, what's next?
So I did want to maybe end the cast here with, we have a couple topics related to D&D. So I think we should start with session 3, maybe. A little bit of thoughts behind that. I mean, we had Jeff on before about session 1, I think. Now we have Nate on, who's playing in our game, obviously.
Did you not want to talk about Panda?
Oh, did you want to talk about Panda?
Oh, yeah, real quick. I played a little bit of Panda, and my goal is to actually pass you up on the rank just with Panda. Uh-huh. If you start whooping on people with Panda, like the moment I get it perfect, I had maybe like 5 disconnects. Like, it's wild how people just like,
crazy.
They don't know how to fight him or her, but like they just quit. So now the only time that I actually get through a match as Panda is if I'm losing because they're beating me. And then anytime I'm winning or doing really well, they just disconnect. I get nothing for it.
So you have to throw 2 games, give them hope.
Maybe that's the way to do it. But like, that's too much. Like, I'll pick someone else at that point. Like, it's super frustrating where I'm at.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Panda does have the highest win rate in the game.
Does it really? I guess it makes sense.
By a long shot. She's at like 54%.
Yeah, I can see
because
that.
no player base.
Yeah.
Because everyone plays Kuma. Kuma also has a high win rate because nobody knows how to play against the bears.
Yeah.
But Panda is, I was watching a video where it was an interesting chart or graph where there was 4 quadrants, and then the left-hand side was red and purple ranks, and the right-hand side was blue plus. And then you had the win rates for both. So if you're in the top right-hand quadrant, that means you have a positive win rate in both red, purple, and blue plus. So Panda's like all the way top right corner. She's just like the best, which is hilarious. But yeah, you beat me in Panda, so.
Is that because of the rework, or was that just always a thing?
No, she didn't get reworked yet, I don't think. That's coming in the summer.
She's always been good. I think it's just like nobody knows the matchup. When you're playing the Bears, it is very just knowledge check.
I hate the Bears.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In my opinion, all you have to do is block, and everything they do is punishable.
Well, the funny thing is, whenever I was sending you and I was like really grinding, because like you and Justin got to Mighty Roller, so I was like, well, I got to do that, and I did it with both accounts. So like we're all in Mighty Roller now. We're all on the first purple. But when I was playing, it was super weird on PlayStation where it was like I got 2 Kumas in a row, and the one was like god awful, and I just destroyed the heck out of him.
Right.
But he did rematch, so I'll give him that. Like it was like I crushed him.
Respect that guy.
Yeah. But then the second one, it was like a night and day difference, and it's like, oh, he like knew combos, knew everything, and it's like I had to work for it. But again, thanks to you, it's like kind of, and like I played Panda, so I kind of know what those are. But yeah, I don't know. It's crazy. But we're at the 45% tile, so let's say, I mean, this is February statistics, but there's 2 million copies sold in the first month. Let's say it's just 2 million. We're quote unquote better than 1.1 million people. We're in the top 900,000 people.
It feels good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good with that.
Yeah, dude. It's fun. I've been having a good time.
Some YouTube videos said 11 million copies, and that just seems
That does seem high.
not right. But anyway.
Okay, anyways.
Okay, D&D.
Yeah, D&D. Before we do jump into this, can you pause this so I can get another coffee?
Yeah.
Okay, back. So we wanted to talk about D&D. We'll start with session 3. Nate is a player in Tyler's game. Tyler's running the game, of course. We've been talking about it. What's the book called again? Icewind Dale?
Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden.
Yes. So that's an official campaign book from Wizards of the Coast. But I'm curious, Nate, like, how do you feel the game's going? I know that Tyler always likes to hear feedback, obviously, as a DM, positive or negative. But he wants more negative. Like, he wants to know what he can work on. So curious about your thoughts about the previous session or the overall game.
Having spent most of session 3 incapacitated.
Yeah, we did a lot of fighting.
And we're dying.
Yep.
That's fair.
I think everything's going well so far. I think we're getting to a point now where we're looking to see like where the main tail hook is going to be. Like, I listened to last week's like cast and a lot about like, you know, mine and Dwayne's characters, mostly me, I guess, progressing the desire to do like the whole like alcohol trade to the Briar or whatever it's called. But I was doing that only because I felt we were going that way anyway, and it was something that we were talking about, and that's how like we were building that relationship with Copper and stuff. So I want to like answer last week's cast by saying like, if you tell me that like we can't do anything with this for like 2 months because we have stuff we want to get like done or places we want to go, great. That was my like way of role playing like my relationship with Copper. We don't need to progress down that path, and it's not something I'm actually super invested in. It was just something I got like in the moment.
I just want you guys to do what you want to do. I think the thing with that specifically is if it organically makes sense, or if you can weave that in. Like if we're going to be in an area where you would be like, oh, I want to bring up the trade here, or I've already brought the trade in and I know different people, then I think it makes perfect sense. Like I'm still trying to guide you guys down specific paths and whatnot.
So like what are we supposed to be doing right now? Are we going to like the different towns, or are we supposed to be
and I don't want to go too far into the like what the book is, because I think you actually hit a good point. Is you're waiting for kind of that main, like, okay, like what's the main hook, like what are you supposed to be doing? And the problem with the book is like that doesn't even happen until like chapter 2. So like you're supposed to like be going around and like doing like different like just side quests, right?
So you read like the beginning of Avernus, right? And you did like the Descent into Avernus.
Yeah.
I ran that with the girls, and I've only run 2 books to completion right now with people, and both times we did not finish in the way that the book intended.
Yeah.
So like last session we were saying like this isn't in the book. John was right when it's like it's a guideline. Like you do not need to stick to the book. Like I cut out the entire finale of the Lost Mines of Phandelver with Jeff and Dwayne and Ryan, and literally made this side mission dragon the like final boss kind of deal, right?
Well, that's kind of where you guys are at right now, where it's like from the first thing, it's like, okay, like you guys got really into the blue goo, you got really into like the different areas, and it's like I wanted to have those subtle things kind of guide you to certain places, but I also wanted to open it up where it's like you can kind of do what you want to do, but like I'm still trying to funnel you into like a certain direction, which is why like all the missions that you're getting are all pointing you to like a certain area of the map or something. And like what you do in that area is completely fine, but it's still kind of like artificially funneling you down a certain path. But I think when it came to the book, I think a lot of the interesting parts were just not it was like all kind of pushed back. So I'm trying to bring those up without overwhelming you guys either, I think is the main thing.
I think that after kind of hearing some of the other players like feedback about wanting to progress the story and me personally wanting to progress the story, I think we are definitely moving a lot more than we did whenever we were kind of coming to the end of Jeff's game, right? Where we were getting stuck in like taverns or like areas for a little bit. And I think Jeff brought up the point, like, had he gone back and redone it, he probably would have pushed people out of like certain role play moments or whatever, thinking that people didn't want to be like interrupted. And I agree that there are spots where like people are role playing because they're enjoying it, and there are times where people are role playing because they're waiting for something else to happen. Mm-hmm. And so something that I think might be really cool, and I'd talked to the group before like anything else, but at the beginning of the session before we start playing, hey, this is kind of where I want the game to go tonight. If you guys don't want to go in this direction, that's fine. Like, you don't have to tell us like what the story is going to be or whatever, but it's like, hey, my goal is to get you guys to this town tonight. So we're going to be like headed in that direction, right? And then that way, if everybody's like, okay, cool, yeah, or if people are like, oh, I really wanted to do this thing, then you kind of have like an understanding. Like, I feel like we don't in character portray what we're looking to do. Mm-hmm. And I think the other piece was too, like, if we have that small little recap of like, this is the objective or this is what I prepared for the night, we then have the opportunity to, we've got that focus, and not like metagaming it, but in character, we can make our decisions to head in that direction. Yeah. I know that one of the reasons why I wanted to come on today was because I found some cool stuff and I wanted to share that too. And I know that that's going to be later, but like watching stuff like that. And then also like just doing like the West Marches game that I'm running. That's been basically Girls Game Part 2. I've learned a lot about like knowing what's going to happen in advance really does like help move things along. Like, the nice thing is like the West Marches game is basically just a series of one shots that build like a larger world. And so the idea behind the West Marches is the players tell you what their goal is for the night. Mm-hmm. And then you help them either succeed or learn about that goal, right? I shouldn't say succeed, but like you help them achieve that goal, or they get to attempt it and they fail, but they get to learn something more about like what's going on, right? And then sometimes, like, I remember like one of the sessions we did, there was a fox that was spotted in the game that we're playing. We do like a random dice generator and it builds the world for us. And we rolled dinosaurs at the beginning of the game. So they haven't seen like a mammal, right, in like this campaign, but a fox was spotted and that showed up on like the town board. And so like they were like, we're going to go look for the fox. And they didn't find the fox, and they found 1,000,001 different other things just because of how they rolled and how the dice went that night. But like we knew what our objective was. So we were always working towards finding that fox. Yes, other things happened along the way. We still made it back to town at the end of the night. Like we still had like a story to tell. Mm-hmm. So like, I think if we have direction, we might not get there, but we may make decisions that progress things forward if we have an idea of where we want to be.
No, that's fair. I like the idea of bookending stuff too, where if you go in and you say like, hey, by the end of the night, ideally we get like to here, then as the night progresses, they can kind of like, you can almost be like your own judge on like, okay, well, we're like halfway through our 3.5, 4 hour session. We maybe we start making our way to like the kind of destination. I dig that. I think that's good. Yeah.
But to be honest with you, I think you're doing well. Also like between the two of you, like I've played with other DMs, like usually didn't stay in those games. And recently my sister was playing in this game And this guy, like, he lives, breathes, eats, sleeps D&D. Like, he's got the basement with all the figurines and, like, you know, and he's been DMing since like 1985. Like, none of us were born. And holy
I had to
crap,
think for a second.
That game was a slog. Like, it was so bad. It was like sitting down, and 90% of the game was exposition, and then you moved into a combat, and then you came back and there was more exposition, and there were like 23 NPCs that were all talking to you at the same time. And it was kind of cool because he knew everybody's name, and they were all the weird D&D names, and he knew about their lore, and he described them all, and it was cool. He built the world. We did not interact with it. It spoke to us, and we moved to combat. Like,
Yeah.
that was rough. When it comes to like games, you and John are both very creative people. You bring something that brings the world to life that a lot of people, including myself, I don't feel have like the same ability to do. Like, there are things about John's games, like the freaking troll with paprika, like, that I will remember for the rest of my life. And it was just something that John came up with on the seat of his pants, right? Like, it was cool. And I used that ogre voice for like every giant and like troll now. Like, I stole that from him because it was so impactful. And now people recognize when like a large being is speaking to them. We all remember about, you know, the purple stones and Josh blowing his hand up from the game that we played with you. Abby still remembers not getting her horse or whatever it was, right?
It was like two sessions in. You're not getting a horse. I'm sorry.
But like, we all remember it, right?
Sure.
And the thing about it is, it was because of those like creative, like seat of your pants moments that you guys just kind of went with. And you creatively like describe stuff. Whereas like for me, I feel like I can do the seat of my pants stuff, but I don't have that creative brain. So I stick very much to the like core of like the written material and stuff. And once again, we'll talk about this stuff in a second. But like, if you, like in the video, they talk about like that one DM who used to write like all those pages of like work, and how like I'm excited for like more player driven games. And I think that's what you want too, is like you want to react to like the players. And so I think if we know like where you want to go.
Well, I think that's the main thing that I struggle with is like, and maybe you guys just don't know any better, honestly, because like unless you guys are like reading the book ahead of time and trying to like metagame it or something. But as we're playing and as I'm seeing how you guys are acting and how your characters are interacting with the world and stuff like that, the more and more I look at it, the more it's like, I feel like I'm making it hard on my, like you would think that like, okay, like I have the book, here's how the story progresses, here's all these things. But like everything that we've done so far has not really gone to like, I'll say like to the book's plan per se, which is completely fine. And I love that. And I love how like, from the Dwarven Assassin to literally the entirety of Session 3 is all just made up. Like, none of that's in the book. That's not anything you're supposed to be doing. That's aside from the character of Danica, who is no relation, you know, like, it wasn't your friend, wasn't anything. Like, all of that is being created. All of that is just made up, right? So, like, I'm having more fun doing that, but I don't want to get so far from the material that like you guys are like, oh, this isn't what we signed up for. So the more I look at it, the more it's like, I kind of want to just do like, it's not homebrew, but it's more of like, okay, I'm just gonna like, I feel like I would have a bigger understanding of characters, places, names, like all that stuff if I just did it.
You know what the great thing is, with the exception of Jeff listening to this, like, we wouldn't.
You could do that. You wouldn't know. Yeah, I think deep down, it's like you can't tell people you played Icewind Dale at that point if it doesn't matter. All different.
Who cares?
I guess.
What's the badge of saying, oh, I played Icewind Dale? Like, once again, Jeff and Ryan and Dwayne can say, hey, we played Lost Mines of Phandelver. They played like 2 of the 5 acts.
That's fair. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the girls didn't do any of the like vehicle stuff that they were supposed to in Avernus, and we skipped a bunch of content. Did they have a whole, no joke, 1 year long campaign?
Yeah.
And did they get to the resolution of that book? Yeah. Did they get to see one of the many endings that book has to offer? Yeah, but that's because at the end of the day, whenever we got through the parts that they were enjoying, they were still interested in like the resolution. But the reason they were interested in the resolution is because it's brought to you from the very beginning, right? The way we got there wasn't really in the book. We did do events from the book. We did a lot of them out of order, but like we got there. Jeff and Tyler, or Jeff, Ryan, and Dwayne's campaign, we met some characters from the book. We went to some locations from the book, and then we made up our own locations. Like you're saying, like, oh yeah, I loved whenever we made up the pirates and we got invested in the world. They didn't name like the people they found in the cave and stuff, but like the cave existed. The ogres or whoever they met weren't there, and the way they interacted with them and the stuff that they did with them wasn't a thing that was ever like scripted, but like they materialized it and I just kind of ran with it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I feel like that's like what people care and what people want in D&D. So like I understand that like there was some pressure coming into this, right? At the beginning, and like you by nature are already kind of a people pleaser, right? So like
screw people.
I understand like the pressure, like, you know, of wanting to make sure that this is like fun and good for everybody. And like you also, you know, wanting to understand that they're enjoying it. We don't know the difference of what's in the book and what's your amalgamation. We don't even know what the goal is right now. We know that there's 10 towns. So right now, the only thing that you're roped into, us knowing, is that we're from these 10 places and we're probably going to see these 10 places. How we get there or why we get there doesn't mean anything, right? And at the end of the day, we know that there's like this ice goddess. This ice goddess could be the big bad of the campaign. Don't know. Could be a misunderstood creature that eventually skyrockets us into the campaign. Don't know. That's still your decision to make, regardless what the book says.
Yeah.
We'll still tell people we played Rime and the Frost Maiden. When they ask us how we did this, we can be like, oh, we didn't see that, but we did this. And they'll be like, oh, we didn't see that. Nobody's going to go and look and make sure that the person did the thing in the book. They're just going to talk about the cool experience they had.
Yeah. No, and that's completely fair. So we'll deviate, I think. Well, I mean, we're so far off the book path regardless, which is fine. But I don't know. I'm a big fan of just sprinkling in. I love a drip feed, and that's always been my biggest complaint with D&D campaigns is too much exposition up front, too much. You really have to care about this. You have to do that stuff. But I could also overcorrect and be like, oh, I'm just going to give you like little pieces that like you have to go through 10 sessions before they all start like coming together. Oh, wait a minute. I got this thing like way back in session 1. And that's just my personal thing. So I got to tweak some things there and figure that stuff out. But I mean, next session will be a very clear, like, hey, do this. Like I was trying like heck to get you guys funnel without just blatantly telling you like, hey, do this.
Yeah, and you don't even
but we got there. We got there. It was fine.
It's literally like, hey, today what I have planned, or hey, today where I planned on ending up is X. Like we really need to end up, you know, back at Danica's camp tonight. Cool. So we'll go and do the mission. We know our goal is to get to Danica's camp. We really probably need to talk to like the King of the Guard in your land that I can't remember without looking at a notebook. Your town.
My town. Oh.
But like Bryn Shander.
Bryn Shander?
Yeah. Like, hey, we really need to talk to this guy in Bryn Shander. Okay, well, we're already on the way back from Danica's. We can make our way there instead of going back towards like Jeff's home or whatever, right? Yeah. And then the same thing, like, I know you're talking about like Jeff's medallion or whatever in that last book, or in the last thing too. Jeff's going to keep showing that stuff off until it pays off. Like he's not
which is
stop.
Great.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm trying to be faithful to the world and everything, but I don't want you guys to keep trying things to nothing
and put us down. And like that's okay. Like we're all expecting like a hard game. Like I do not want my character to die, and I will do everything in my power to not die. The only reason my character even engaged in this fight was because a little bit of me came out and I wanted to fight. But like really, I should have hit under that cart, or like I shouldn't have busted.
But you enjoy combat, so I think that's the other piece of it, where it's like I know you like combat, but your poor character just got crushed last session. So it's like
it'll get better as like I level up and stuff. Like I'm a very poor barbarian from a stat perspective, but there's ways to like that's why I enjoyed the goblin aspect of like what I'm playing. Like the reason I went there is because like goblins are known for being kind of squishy and like, you know, low, but like they're the buggers that'll bite your leg, and like all of a sudden, you know, they hit with like a big thing. So I'm very much playing this barbarian like a glass cannon, and I'm bought into like the fact that I am going to go down and I am going to die, but my relationship with Dwayne is going to make sure I stay alive.
Yeah.
Because he'll look out for saving me. Like I'm the big dumb who's going to run in anyway.
I like the idea from your character, Nate, of using the rage mechanic as like an alter ego sort of, where like your character is about survival and not fighting, but when you snap into that rage, you don't care.
Yeah.
Right.
I haven't hit the rage yet, but
I thought you did in that last fight.
no, I should have hit the rage.
In my mind, I thought you popped it.
No,
I thought you did.
I did because that's how I survived. Or
Yeah.
I would have survived one of the hits if it was like 1 point less. I did like right at the end, but I have not really had a chance to use the rage.
Yeah, right. But that's kind of
Yeah.
my headcanon, not to like put
My
flavor into your thing.
headcanon is pretty much spot on. My headcanon was I only will rage if somebody hits Dwayne's character. So like Dwayne's character gets struck.
Rage.
Dwayne's character is just murking everything in the camp. He's just hanging
Yeah.
on the back lines and just blasting people like it's going out of style. Like,
I put that in I wrote like a journal entry.
oh yeah, nice.
And I was like, these guys, I can't believe I'm traveling with these goblins. This is crazy. I like put a specific passage where I kind of wanted to touch every character in terms of like my relationship with them. And I was like, can't believe I'm traveling with 2 goblins, but you know, help is so scarce here that like I'm not going to turn them away. And then I was like, maybe this is like, I shouldn't be judging people based off my preconceptions. Maybe this is a lesson my father intended for me to learn, something like that. And I was like, Nate's character, pretty much what I expect. Dwayne's character, holy crap. There's something like, I'm like very, like I just go into like, I'm very impressed. Like there's something here. There's more to her than meets the eye. I think it's very interesting. The dynamics very interesting. Like I think one of the things I had struggled with initially was having my character fit into the group dynamic that was formulating. And I think as every session goes on, it gets better. Like I think there's a lot of untapped potential there to make it very intriguing because we are all very different. Especially my character. I feel very different than the rest of the group, maybe minus like John's character, but I think there's something cool there where it's like a person, like a fish out of water kind of story where it's like a person who should not be interacting with these people or would not interact with these people has to, and forming relationships through sheer necessity is kind of intriguing to me.
Yeah.
I very much never expected, and nor did we plan to talk about dwarves as much as we do, but I'm very much enjoying that bit that'll never die. And then
Just for context for the audience, Nate and Dwayne, 2 of the players, are playing goblins who disguise themselves as dwarves.
Yeah.
And they just nonstop talk about dwarves to continue the facade, even though it's honestly backfiring and making people suspicious. It is very funny.
I mean, this is an area in the as north as you can get, and it's full of dwarves. So like whenever you start,
there's
like,
a part of
doing
me that makes that's just waiting for somebody to call us out on it.
Yeah.
And then like the other thing is too, with the disguise kit, just for your toolbox, there is a DC check to the disguise kit. And I think it's like an intelligence 14 where like you can be behind the thing and we can be talking to an NPC and you go boom, and that person gets a 15 investigation. They now know that they may not know what we are, but they know we're wearing a disguise or a
And then you
costume.
just sit on that,
Yeah.
turn us into the guard at the worst moment.
So not lost on me, and there are some things going on in the background. And like this is what kills me is like when we're talking about the campaign, it's like
You can't talk about
I can't talk about a lot of that stuff, and I can't talk about how cool like the session is just because it's like completely like where we ended up and whatnot is like completely different from what we set out to do or the outset. Like I was like, okay, go to Tourmaline, or not really there, but like right outside there, that was going to be like where everything went down and everything. Like, and you guys got to a certain point, you rolled specific dice, and the dice did their thing. And they're like, all right, well, we're heading back. And I'm like, no. And you go like the wrong way. And it's like, all right. So, but like, that's the thing is like, that's what I like about it, where it's like, okay, think on your feet. Okay, how does that then feed into
I
the
think
story.
with some of that too is we did think we had to get back to Danica.
100%. And that's
Right.
completely fine. And the idea was that was the intent is like, okay, you got to get back there because kind of did. But things would happen along the way to force you in a different path. Those things just didn't happen. So it's like, if I'm going to tell you to roll something, then you have to go by the dice. And I'm 100% fine with that. And it's just that, like, that's the kind of like improv stuff that I enjoy personally, where it's like, I'm fine. Like, I don't want you guys going in circles. So I'll make sure that it's like moving the story along or giving you another piece of information or something like that. And I think we're again at a point where you'll get some exposition, you'll get kind of more clear instructions, and then you kind of just go. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. How's combat? Is it generally okay for how that is? Okay.
I like the free flow style where we take a turn, they take a turn.
A little more cinematic.
Cinematic, and it allows us to kind of coordinate a little bit where we can kind of talk through who wants to go and what they're trying to accomplish, which is kind of like, I guess it's not as immersive because like in the heat of combat, you might be a little bit more like individual, I guess, about what people are doing, but I like it from a gameplay sense. And then I also really like the addition of the defensive active rolling for the players. So
You do like that?
I do, because I think you're exactly right. Like when I'm DMing, the most boring part of combat, and I think what slows it down a lot, is when the enemy is rolling. Mm-hmm. And it feels horrible when I roll really well as the DM and you as the player have no interaction, no say. Like, yes, are you still rolling dice? Yes, is it still random? But even if the player gets to roll defense, they feel like they are in control of their destiny, right? Like, I can only blame myself if I roll poorly and they hit me.
Or you could have a +2 AC and you're like, okay, I have a 25% chance of not doing
right. But at least but that feels better. Like, okay, maybe I can high roll this versus like, oh, I have a +8 to hit as a DM and you just see me crush you on a 10, right?
Yeah.
Like that feels terrible. So
Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic addition. When you have the DM roll less and the players roll more, that's what you want.
Yeah,
because
it's
rolling
the
is
same-
one of the most fun parts of the game, almost universally, I would say, right? Everyone likes rolling.
And it's above table too, so it's like I just straight up like, okay, beat a 17. Mm-hmm. And then great, okay.
It's very
you gotta
clear
do
what
that.
what
Yeah.
you need, and it gives the initiative to the players, which is what you want as a DM. So I think that's a fantastic rule, and I honestly want to implement that going forward, personally.
I named poor Ralph, and you guys just obliterated that enemy guy. Like I
I'm
was
a
like, oh, maybe
sucker.
he'll be like a captive or something.
I'm a sucker, and Nate knows this because I mean he mentioned like Paprika and stuff. Like I am a sucker for like random dude gets a name, and now I want him on my team. Like challenge rating 1/8. We are gonna take this guy. We're gonna build this guy out. He will be aiming. Like that is like my complete MO. Like every NPC I make when I'm DMing, I think about it from the perspective of like, if the party likes this person and connects with them, they will be able to join and carry them through like, even if they are useless or whatever. Just like, I remember like I always, I had like the Carmine Brothers-esque version of that where they're like a bunch of brothers die and there's like the one survivor or whatever. And you guys, he was just a guard. He was like 1/4 challenge rating, but you guys were like, this guy's going with it. He's not dying. It's like, so yeah. I'm a sucker for that.
I will always, because I think the thing that killed him wasn't.
I didn't realize he died.
Dwayne rolled a 1, so his like frost bolt or whatever just like splintered and oddly enough, the entire party rolled really well.
So
and didn't hit
bringing that
anyone.
into play, right? It did hit myself because I was on the ground. I did not realize that I was so far away from like the group. I'm not saying that we need like a tactical grid system, but it would be nice if we just had tokens or something to understand.
Yeah.
Like one of your things was like, I want combat if it's going to be engaging. I want you guys to use the environment and stuff. We don't know where we are to use the environment.
That's fair.
I had that problem too, because like you were asking me questions like, are you 30 feet from Nate? And I was like, I have no idea. Like I was losing myself. Like I knew I kept moving backwards in the fight, but when you don't have that, and I'm very much Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I'm very pro theater of the mind stuff. I like that. I think it's more immersive for me because I'm just thinking about it. But I do agree with Nate where like there has to be some representation because like at the end of the day, when you're talking about technical rules, like I need to be X feet away, it's very easy to lose that in that style.
In my theater is going to be different. Like it's going to be slightly different across.
We all have
right?
different imaginations.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize like you see all like these videos and stuff on like TikTok and Instagram and stuff of people like, oh, you think in like pictures and you think in words. Like, you know, I'm one of those people. I don't see an image in my mind when I'm thinking about something. I hear about it. You know what I mean? Like I hear a description and stuff. I don't see like if I tell you about an apple, you probably see like a red or a green or like a pink lady or something. I just hear apple. Like like I know what it is.
Sure.
I can describe it. I don't see it.
Okay. No, I mean that's great feedback. So when I was asking like, okay, like what are you doing? I was trying to leave it a little bit loose of like, where do you see yourself, right? Like, are you like, you know, shoulder to shoulder? Like, I can be more descriptive for sure. Is that something though that do you think
I
like,
still need a visual aid, dude. Like
No, that's what I mean. But what I'm saying is like, would it make sense then? Do you want something that's like, I mean, everyone's using their own computers. Do you want to do it on like a Roll20? Or do you want me to just throw a mat down and just have the tokens?
I think
on
the
the
mat would be easier. I have mats that you can use. I have tokens that you can use. I have a crap ton of minifigs and a Divinity Original Sin 2 board game with a crap ton of minifigs that I'm never going to play and I can't sell.
Sure.
So like we can open it up. I can give you a bunch of well-designed minis. I can give you like a freaking Kraken if you want a snow Kraken for some reason. Like that's a joke, but like,
Well, now it's wheels are turning. No, that's completely fine. Let's do that. I mean, yeah. Like, so where are we at next? We're at Jabez.
Jabez, yeah.
Okay. Let's do.
That's the toughest place.
I was going to say that's a small table, but yeah, let's try.
But if you can do it there, you can do it anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, I tried it, and it didn't work out super well, but we did have a game where I put a TV on the table, like I have a little 32-inch TV, hooked up like an environmental map, and then had people place like minis on like the map.
Yeah.
I have 2 spare TVs that we could turn into like some sort of platform, and I've been talking about this for probably a decade now that I want like a TV table, and have just not found like, you know, the person with the wherewithal to do it except Jeff and Jabbo. Jabbo is down to build it. We just have to take the time to do it. And I think it would be a cool concept. I've seen people do like these cases where it's basically just a wood frame with a TV in it and an HDMI port that you link up. And then that way you can just plug in and have your laptop and build like the scenery out. That's cool. If that's something we want to do, I'm willing to donate the TV or TVs, right?
Yeah.
The other portion is, and the guy at the like Forever DM dude that I said like was really into like the thing, there's these things called the Great Book of Battle Maps, and they're on Amazon. And I'm willing to pitch in and buy a couple because I know I'll use them. But he would do those with like the little glue dots. You know what I'm talking about? Like the little like sticky, like you put them on like the bottom of things to like give them like resistance. So they don't- And he would take that battle map, and then I've got the other pieces that he had, which are like these cut out like grids. You put the little glue dots on them and stick them on the maps and like build, like pre-build like maps out of like this book. And you just stick the books out, and they're different environments, different like layouts and things. And it's really cool. And we all knew where like things were and what we were doing. And then he went really hard. And like whenever we used like a wall of fire, he had like all the little fire like pieces to like put up the wall and stuff. That was a little much. Like you can do that with like a piece of paper or whatever, right? But like that was as much as like I enjoy like the combat aspect of it. I like a nice even mix. Like whenever people say like, you know, a session of D&D, you're supposed to have so many encounters per like hour. I very much like a 60-40 like story to combat encounter. Like I like having like the one fight like per game or whatever, right? But I don't need it to be like super theatric like you see on like TV and stuff. I just need to understand where things are so that I can get through it. You know what I mean? But there are some people that get like real hard into it.
Yeah. It's like, at what point is it
Too much?
a video game?
That guy.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Like that was like, okay, do we really have to like he would literally like shift them, like if they weren't facing the correct direction, like he would like make sure like everything was like cinematic, and then he would freaking take pictures to like put in the journal to like send us. Like he wanted it to be like we were acting out a movie with these figurines. That was too much.
And the beauty of it too is that isn't too much for some people. Like some people, that's their dream game, right?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it, where it's really comes down to who is your group and how do you fit something that is in, because every person obviously has a perfect idea of what they want. Maybe they don't fully understand it themselves yet, but I mean, internally, like everyone has a preference on everything. So yeah, that's what it comes down to. It's up to the DM to create a game in which it's right in the middle, ideally of what everyone would like. You have to compromise on some things, obviously, because you're never going to have a perfect group of people that all align 100%. But
and see, that's where Jeff was really good, where he's like, here's the ship, and then you knew what it was, right?
Yeah,
and it's just like, for me,
build
like
a ship for you.
I love like design and I love art. God, do I hate crafts and anything like that. So like when you talk like, oh, we'll do like a TV thing, immediately it's like, cool, fire up RPG Maker. I'll design you the heck out of any type of map. And like that's where I'm at. But like to actually like sit there with glue and paint and all that, like that. And that's why I was asking people, I'm like, hey, where do props fall on your list of things that you enjoy? Because if everyone was like, we love props, I'm like, well, I am not your DM. I'm sorry. But as far as the battle map goes, like 100%, like I still have that big one somewhere.
I have like 4.
Yeah. And that's awesome. Like
I cut one up into
totally
like quarters, so you can even have like.
Yeah. No, I think that'll be helpful. So yeah, we could totally do that. Maybe, yeah, when we go to Jabba's, if you don't mind just bringing stuff,
yeah,
we can get some visual aids going and go from there. That's good feedback.
Yeah. So I know, Nate, you also wanted to talk about, you were inspired by a video that you saw specifically about a different game style. It's eluding me what it's called, but
Apocalypse.
Maybe.
So,
yeah, if you want to describe it.
I actually saw the video because the girls have wanted, mostly myself and Anna, but we've wanted to do a D&D campaign based off of like Persona, like the video game, because we both really enjoy that world and that universe. And there's so many things that you can do with it, but translating D&D, especially with like the way I think, is very hard. So my original intent for that game was everybody gets a character sheet and they are a fighter. And that's all they can be, is a human fighter. And then your character class that isn't a fighter is your persona, and that like levels up like alongside you. So you have the abilities from like, if you want to be like a mage and have like more magic stuff, you have that like character class, but then you also have the combat prowess of a fighter, right? And things would go up. And I was like, that's a lot to DM because everybody's playing 2 characters at that point, right? Like, yes, the character like comes out of you and you really just have like another class's worth of abilities, but you're tracking 2 character sheets. And I didn't like have a way to do like the elemental stuff and things that are like key to Persona. So I found that somebody got really bored over COVID and wrote an entire, there were 2 people. One was called The Velvet Book and the other one was called the Persona Tabletop RPG or something like that. It's like PPTT RPG. And they use the system that I just recently discovered and what I sent you guys the video on because I was learning about the system, called Powered by the Apocalypse. And Powered by the Apocalypse is based off of a game called like World of Apocalypse or something. I don't remember, so I'm not doing it justice right now already. But like this company was like, we want this to be like open source. So think of like this game or this like rule set being like Unreal 5. You can go out and you can use it and you can build a game in it and you can have fun, but you have to tell people that it's powered by the Unreal Engine. In this case, you have to say in your title of your game that this game is powered by Apocalypse or powered by the Apocalypse X game. You use enough of our rules, you have to do this. And Powered by the Apocalypse is a very simple, like entry level RPG. You use 2d6. On a certain roll, you fail. On another roll, you succeed, but there's a consequence, or you succeed without failure, right? And the DM never rolls dice. So we were already talking about like how the more the players roll, the better it is. In this specific game, the players only roll the dice, and bad things only happen if they get the failure or the partial success. So you were asking in text about these playbooks, and what the playbooks are for a lot of these games are like a generic set of actions that people can take. The Persona game technically has a playbook, but it specifically tells you not to give it to the players. So the way this game is set up is players come with their 2d6. They build out their character sheet and they know what their persona abilities are. And then you go out and you play the game. So when a combat or something comes up and you say, okay, I'm going to take my longsword and I like want to, you know, basically like fake this dude out and then like stab him. And I'll be like, okay, as your character, I need you to roll, you know, your athletics for that melee attack. And you roll your 2d6. And if you roll a 7, you get that attack off. And then I describe how like the enemy, like, you know, their buddy comes up and like kicks you off him or something. So you take a little bit of damage and like the game continues, but you never take an enemy turn, right? So like when you're talking about like you enjoy theater of the mind, but like, you know, sometimes it is like hard to conceptualize things. In this very scenario, it's kind of like everybody's like in the thick of it. So like you don't have a disadvantage for having like a ranged attack. You don't have like an advantage for having like, you know, more than one person like next to somebody. You're kind of just like going through and like acting out like this battle. So if you want your character to be like 30 feet away, great. But then whenever you get hit by an enemy that you shot, they're going to be casting like a lightning spell or something at you. Like they all have like the options. So everybody can have like their different perspective of like where's everybody at, and it's still going to work. The other thing that's really cool, and they mentioned in that video that I sent, was like how people in D&D, like I want to roll perception. I want to like, you know, do whatever. You don't have a sheet or a skill set that says like you have this perception check. So like, you're okay, I want to bend down and I want to like check under this desk, right? And see if I can find like, you know, a way to open this drawer. And it's like, okay, roll your intelligence and you get a 10. So that's a clear success. Nothing bad happens. You find you get down on your hands and knees and you're able to search and you find like a button under there, right? Like people have to describe what they're doing to complete like an action. And then you as the DM have to decide what stat fits with what they're doing. So like somebody may be doing an investigation check here and it's intelligence, but somebody may be doing something else that, you know, like they're trying to figure something out, but it might be more of like a magic thing, right? So you can tell them to use like a different stat. The other really cool thing about the Persona game, because the Powered by Apocalypse is a generic rule set that you can expand upon. So the Persona game specifically has this luck stat, which is something you can invest in that's basically giving yourself inspiration, and you utilize your luck to like force a failed roll to like a partial success or whatever. And then that stat goes down and you don't get your stats back till the end of the play session. So like you can forego like other things to have a lucky character to be able to like influence rolls and stuff. But like then in a different game, you can have a completely different rule set using the same like base system. And it's all the players doing something and the DM creatively reacting to what the players are doing and guiding like what their role is going to be for. You basically are just telling them what bonus they get.
So you're still going off of like stats?
Roughly. You can get like minor bonuses.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So like where do those come in? Like you told all of us to like make a character, right? So like what do I bring as a character?
I need to know. So like for instance, Abby actually sent me hers in the middle of this like session, right? And Abby sent me literally exactly what I want. So she has a description of her character's persona, her character, and then for those of you that aren't familiar with the Persona games, usually the main characters have some sort of like revelation that drives them to gain like this power of persona. So whenever we play this game, I'm going to have everybody like have a group scenario where like this revelation kind of happens to everybody. So I had to make them have like the same like problem. And so for this game, like it's a sense of loss. So one of the characters who's going to be playing, she was saying, because most of the Persona games are based in Japan, that, she was looking through like Japanese, like, names. And whenever I told them to make my life easier, because this is the first time ever running something like this, we're going to do it in an American school. She was like, oh, well, I'm going to close that website that I was looking at names on. And I was like, well, I told you I wanted a sense of loss. Who says your character didn't move here 4 years ago and isn't missing like their hometown, their friends, their family, their old house? Like, that's a pretty big loss. You can build your Japanese Persona character and have it in an American school and like meet like the need of like the campaign. But then the other thing is too, like building out like this world and stuff. Like the guy in the video was talking about, he used to have a bunch of notes and now he doesn't do much. It's a lot more improv. The game basically is like, what's your game world? How do they get there? Who's the big bad? Why is the big bad doing what they're doing? And make sure that if the characters like come up with another reason why the big bad's doing what they're doing, that you just go with that. Like it's very like high level and you're just improving off the characters the whole time. The characters are rolling all the dice, building the entire story. And all you're doing is whenever one of their actions seems like, some sort of chance or some sort of consequence may need to happen, you give them something that they need to roll for. Mm-hmm. And the most you can get at like the early levels is like a +2 bonus to.
But I think that's the thing is like, how do you get the +2 bonus? Like, that's the thing I'm not understanding.
So whenever we build your character out, you have a suit that you pick, and that suit is related to different types of arcana, which are basically just like tarot cards.
And those are the ones you sent through. So I pick a suit based off of the list that you sent.
Correct.
Okay.
Now there is an extra suit I was going to give you the option of, specifically you. Okay. There's 2 suits that I did not include in the game. One of them is a pure combat suit. I'm not letting anybody pick that. Okay. You're basically an android that's there to kill things. Like, it was kind of dumb.
Sure.
The other one is a character called the Compass.
It doesn't like anime.
In all of the Persona games, there's not always from the beginning, but you get a support character that doesn't enter the fight, but influences the fight. Like, will randomly heal people, will randomly like do this. So this character gets an ability that gives them negatives to all of the combat rolls. So they can enter combat if they want, but they're starting with a -2 to like all of their strength rolls and all of their magic rolls. And they don't get like all of the same abilities the other characters do, but then they get party-wide support buffs. So like they can cheer people on and increase everybody's defense, or like
100%. Can I do that?
Yeah.
All right. Just send me whatever that is.
I will.
want that. All right.
I figured that was right up your alley.
Yeah, done.
But then like, it's like, oh yeah. So like if you're just playing like a regular combat, you can just assume that this character's not fighting because the party's protecting them and they're on the back line. Like, and it's like, if you want to have like a more tactical game, like if your players are really into like a combat grade and the theater of the mind just doesn't do it for them, they have rules like, if you're attacking as your player, unless you're using a ranged weapon, you can only hit 1 square in front of you. Your persona is bigger. It can hit 2 squares in front of you for melee. And then all ranged attacks, always 6 squares. So if you're within 6, you can hit. And if you're not within 6, you can't hit. And then it gives you a point to like your agility stat, because your movement, the number of squares you can move, is your agility stat +3. Okay. So you can move a minimum of 3 squares. We're probably going to try 2 different combat methods out just to see what people like better. But I very much like the idea that you're not going to have a list of actions and abilities in front of you that aren't for combat use, but you're going to have the ability to do pretty much whatever comes to your mind. And I'm just going to have to figure out how that gets done. You know what I mean? So it's going to facilitate less, I want to do this mundane action, or I want to use this ability. And it's going to be, my character should humanly be able to do this, so I'm just going to do it. And then I'm going to say, okay, roll this. And the nice thing about rolling 2d6 is craps, right? The lower payouts and the house number, right, are based around the numbers that give you that mixed success, where you get to do your thing, but then it creates something. And I kind of want to like hear your guys's like opinion of like that video, because the one other thing that they talked about in there were these like scenario like explosions, where people rolling mixed success after mixed success after mixed success. So they keep on doing what they want to do, but something keeps happening in relation to that, right? And eventually it comes to a point where something catches up, or they fail, or they succeed and they get away, and it builds a moment. And it's all because they continually are rolling these dice as like a group to get away from the continued consequence of rolling that very normal roll.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I first want to point out, I believe the video is from the Dungeon Dudes. Wanted to give them credit, obviously, since we're referencing the video. I forget what the title name is, so apologies about that. But no, so I thought it was really interesting. Like, from a theoretical standpoint, this is right up my alley because I love the role play aspect of Dungeons
Like
and
the
Dragons
improv
and the
type
improv.
stuff,
Like, it's all, and then you don't have to worry about any of the technical aspects of like, here's what my character does, here's all of my abilities, right? It's very fluid in the sense that like there's 3 results. It's up to your creativity, which in my opinion is the best part of the game. And like Nate described, it has the opportunity to have these really intense moments that build, and you're kind of like trading off, right? When you're having these partial successes, where I think one example they said in the video, which sounded cool, was like, you have, the MacGuffin in your hand and you're trying to fight someone off, and you fight them off, but you drop it. And then someone else is trying to pick that up. And then, something gets traded there because you keep having these partial successes. Because like Nate mentioned, that's like the most probable result, the numbers in the middle, 7, 8, and 9 in particular. So I am very intrigued by it. I think it'd work. It sounds very exciting to me. The potential worry that I have is, I believe this creates a ton of pressure for the DM or the GM, because when there is a dice result, you're solely responsible for conveying what happens, right? Like, the player initiates what they would like to happen. And when you have a lot of partial successes, you have to creatively instill what the negative aspect of that is while they are succeeding. I'm thinking about my own groups that I run games for, and it's like, if I'm a little too heavy-handed on the consequence, people are going to get upset, right? Or if I'm too easy on the consequence, it might not be as suspenseful. So that's a lot of pressure in my mind, where it's like, on an individual basis, you have to repeatedly come up with something that's balanced, that people are happy with, in terms of like, okay, this makes sense. That's a fair trade-off. And maybe that just comes with practice.
Well, you have to think too, the way they kind of police themselves on that is it's a mixed success.
Right.
So they roll a success. What they're trying to do, what outcome they're trying to achieve happens, but something is continuously chasing them, or something is continuously like coming and making, getting away from whatever this conflict is more difficult. So for instance, you have the example that they used in the video of, I think it was called Monster of the Week, was the name of the book that one of them ran. And in that specific game, I guess the player is getting chased by like a creature with like a big tentacle or something that like drags people in and eats them. The character rolls a missed success to run away from the monster. The character gets away, but the monster like scratches their leg or cuts their leg. So now the character is running slower. There's no anything that says your speed's reduced or anything like that in D&D where you have like a specific like, number to that. It's just your theater of the mind, and okay, like this creature's still on my tail and now it's harder to get away. So I'm going to take like, so let's say like, you're in a cabin or something, like I'm going to shut this door and like bar it with like a chair or like a dresser or something while this creature's chasing me. Roll mixed success, you bar it, you make time for yourself, you're able to get farther away, but this creature busts through your barricade and is still continuing to chase you. You have to find a way to resolve that, right? So eventually what's probably going to happen is you're going to roll a success, which is a 10, 11, 12, and you're going to find that one escape where the creature doesn't have like that consequence on you, right? Or you're going to roll a failure, and now your party needs to figure out how you're getting out of the situation now that the monster's caught one of you and you're stuck in its mouth. Right.
Which is super cool. It's one of those things though, like now you're making your chance of success at like 25%. versus like a 50-50. So like
But your chance of failure is also 25%.
It's 1 through 6, isn't it? So your chance of failure is 50%.
But you get bonuses to your rolls, which will explain.
Okay, I mean, maybe that'll
Yeah.
fix some of that stuff. But it just seems like, so like on a 10, 11, and 12, you do what you want to do, which is completely fine. But then a 7 through 9, it's like you do it, but then like you were saying, like, okay, but it's a give and take.
You're
so
also thinking like that it always has to like proceed, right? So if the game doesn't act in that way, so for instance, Jonathan rolls the 7 to bar the door that the creature, I said, busts through. In this scenario, maybe I want Jonathan to escape, like, because that was his goal. But by barring the door, so not only did he cut it like his ankle, but he, in his struggle to push this thing aside, once again he drops the MacGuffin, right? He drops the thing that they're going after, and now the party needs to figure out, okay, the monster's in there. We've gotten away. How do we get the item, the key, whatever that we need to collect? How do we sneak back in there and collect this thing? Or how do we avoid this creature? It doesn't need to be a continual explosion until either a success or a failure happens. Remember, success is 7 through 12. It's just something else happens on that 7 to 9.
Yeah, no, and I'm just with John in that, like, that's a lot on the DM to like make, and that's awesome because I think it's improv and that's the fun part of it. I think so. When, like, let's say you get a 7, is that the same as getting a 9?
Yep.
Or you? Okay, so that's the thing that I wasn't really comprehending, because in my mind it's like, okay, you got a 7 on a scale of 7, 8, or 9. You were on the lower end of it. So while it's like you did the thing, I would say that a 7 would give you more of a negative aspect versus like if you got a 9, it'd be like you did the thing, you almost got away scot-free, but here's the thing, and there's like a range almost. Is kind of how
that's what I think is kind of cool, is because it definitely gets you to think in like a less, like, they kept on referring to D&D in the video as crunchy, right? And I didn't understand it the first time watching it. I went back after like finishing reading the Persona rulebook and like reading it again, and I was thinking through stuff exactly like that, where it's like, okay, like originally when I read this, like a 7 and 9, like, okay, what happens if they roll a 7 versus 9? Like, how much, like, do I give them? But that's not the spirit of the game. The spirit of the game is to progress people interacting with each other. So it's very much like, this is supposed to be simple. This is supposed to be cut and dry. It's supposed to add a little bit of randomness to roleplay.
Gotcha.
So the question that I have is, in a lot of your examples and in a lot of the examples that they were referencing in the video, it was very, because one of them was like Monster of the Week, right? Where they're like running away. They're not really fighting. So what we generally play is we're engaging with someone else and we're fighting. How does that not devolve into, because like one of the problems with D&D as well is it's just like I swing my sword, I try to hit. How do you evolve that with this kind of system?
So it's not completely evolving out of that as much as it is I roll for my long sword, right? So like Tyler's like point where it's like, okay, like I want to tackle this creature, right? You might have a long sword that has like stats or whatever, but it doesn't mean that using your athletics to tackle the creature is going to be that much worse, like damage wise, right? And you can get effects. So there isn't like a prone or like whatever, like piece where if I knock somebody prone, I can't hurt them. So like, do I really want to do this? They have an action where, you can punch somebody and it uses your character's physical prowess. So whatever your stat is for you, like your athleticism, and you get a bonus to that damage. If not, I think it's just like a D6. Like you get a D4 or a D6 to like do damage, just normal without like a sword or a gun or anything like that. By having a sword or a gun or something, it gives you an additional bonus or it gives you a little bit more damage. But then like the other piece of that too is whenever you roll like what you would consider like a critical hit, like a success, whenever you roll that, you get to hit without any repercussions. Critical hits in this game, whenever you roll a 12 plus, you get to deal your damage without any repercussions, and you can inflict a status effect on them, like pushing them over or whatever. You can choose to take extra damage. Like you can evolve and like basically like build out like what your character did. So in in this instance, right, I'm describing like how I attack a creature, and it's like, okay, I take my club and I'm going to bring it up over my head and I'm going to come down and like I'm going to try and like crush like their shoulder, right? And you roll those dice, and then it's like, okay, I rolled like a critical success, so I crush their shoulder and I do a crap ton of damage. Or the character says, I crush their shoulder and I sweep their leg to knock them to the ground, like to set up my like friends for success. Like it makes you describe how these things happen so that the additional like outcomes can go through. Same thing with like the partial success where the creature gets to retaliate, right? So one of the things in Persona is like the down status happens whenever you like hit somebody with a weakness or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in this game, the down status happens after both parties get their turn. So you attack somebody that's weak to ice with an ice spell. They then get to retaliate in some way, shape, or form, and then they fall prone, which skips their next turn, right? So like next time somebody attacks that creature, they basically get to do it for free. Now other creatures can like attack them with like the failure or whatever, but then one of the things, the all-out attacks are super cool. So if you do knock all the enemies prone, every character gets to roll their athleticism, add their damage together, and then that damage happens to every enemy.
That's yeah, that's cool.
So you get to describe like how everybody like dog piles. Like,
yeah. No,
Nice.
I think it's very interesting. It's intriguing to me. I do think that like anything, you're sacrificing some components that make D&D fun. Mm-hmm. And I'm actually really surprised that you gravitate towards this, because I would consider you, maybe I'm wrong about this assessment, but it seems to me that you do like your abilities in D&D. You do like progressing.
My biggest setback when it comes to DMing, though, is I'm focusing too much on all these numbers and all these different places and all these different things. Mm-hmm. When I know I can do fine when we're completely outside of that realm, but then I'm also always trying to get back to that realm, right? Where I'm like comfortable being in this setting, knowing that it's only going to be improv for the most part, with the exception of like 3 major plot points. I can do whatever I want and have fun based off the rolls and see what people are having fun doing. And then the game literally like coaches you to like have your outcome match what the players are doing. So I don't know. I thought it was really
that
neat.
Makes sense. Yeah.
And then I also, you guys are always talking about like building like your own RPG. This system is so easy to build like a tabletop RPG that you could build like your own universe and your own world, and you have like the ability to set up like this stuff. And the guy who built the Persona game, like this thing's like 140 pages. He did it in 7 months. Granted, it was 7 months of COVID, but like he did it in 7 months.
Right. No, I think it's really interesting.
I think, how much do I need to know about Persona in order to care about anime? Okay.
That's
good.
Wait, what?
I don't know. I got to think of a character.
Oh, yeah. No, just...
I texted you. You never texted me back.
Yeah, in the group chat. Yeah.
Are you free tomorrow? Do you want to try it out, or are you doing D&D? I assumed because you didn't answer me that
I'm
you were
not doing
D&D.
D&D. No, I should be good to go.
Then I will add you to the chat, and I will send... Well, I can't add you to the chat because Jeff has a freaking Android, but I will send you the materials separately. Okay. I will let people know that you're showing up, and I will... Well, we're building out the remainder of our characters there. I just want you to come in with a concept.
Now, in like the Persona itself, like I just make anything I want.
Anything you want.
That's a lot of... It could be anything. All
I
right.
mean, you can literally steal one from like the games.
I don't want to do that, but
like the fun part is like creating like your characters. Like
they're so wild, though. It's like I'm not that creative.
Well, the cool thing about them is like, once again, I mean, going back to like source material and wanting to like kind of stay true to it.
Yeah.
Which is why I didn't give people this suggestion in there, because I didn't want to push that influence on them. Not to push this influence on you, but you don't know anything about the game, so it may not do anything.
I don't care.
But if you think about like Persona 5, their awakening is all about rebellion, right? Something is keeping them down and they decide to rebel against their oppressor, kind of deal. Mm-hmm. If you ever like look at like the personas that they have, all of them are like famous real life or fictional rebels. So like if you go and you look at like the description for Carmen, or go on like the wiki and figure out like who Carmen was, like she was basically like...
I think I got an idea.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like for the Lost thing, you could go like and pick like a persona and have it be like a fictional character or a real person that overcame like a great like, you know, loss, and you can design like a crazy version of it. Like, do me a favor and just Google Zorro from Persona 5, right?
Zora's in Persona 5?
Yeah, like the guy who's, you know,
All right. Zora.
carving Z's on things, right? But like,
yeah.
he has a rapier, he has a hat. You can kind of get that he's Zorro, but like he's real, like stylized. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's Zora.
Yeah.
It's just a robot.
But yeah, he's like a triangle and he's got like a hat for like a helmet. Like, I don't know. He's not like, he doesn't look like the actual character, but
Right.
like you can name it and have like the spirit.
Yeah,
of, like,
exactly. No.
This is the cat?
Yeah.
That's Morgana. Yeah, Morgana's
Persona.
first.
I guess
Persona.
I just don't understand.
There's a
Persona.
formula to it. It's,
So if I'm Tyler and I'm like, hey, this is my character. I'm just me. I have to come up with something I turn into.
Nope. It's like, the easiest way to describe it is a ghost that embodies like your spirit. So like
it comes
Sure.
out.
So
That's
like
what I mean.
earlier when I walked into
Okay,
your,
no, it's not. I turn into, but like,
It comes out and it fights like a Pokemon would.
when I came,
It has abilities and it
okay, so it's
fights.
like Final Fantasy Ifrit comes out.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like a summon.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Except like not too much bigger than you.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, to put things into like perspective, when I came upstairs today and you were in like your mood because Jonathan was whooping your ass,
In Tekken.
I wasn't
not
gonna-
just-
I wasn't
not
gonna bring it
physically.
up.
Yeah.
I would say that at that point in time, your persona would have been like Droopy Dog.
This is a bad spot.
You were that bad?
He was just a little
Dude,
glum. He was a glum
Nate
chum.
showed up like right after I got
I'm
off, so
sorry,
like I
dude.
needed a second to decompress and
He was a glum chum.
yeah. Well, it was, but so okay, so
What is this for?
I can do that.
Oh.
Does,
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be like a real thing. I can make anything up. All right. That's
Like Abby's character is like a weird, like shadow faced, like half human, half snake person with a cat of nine tails. Like, no idea what it's based off of. She had fun with it. She likes the design. If you could design your own Pokemon to represent you,
okay. Can do that.
yeah,
I think it sounds cool. I'm interested.
I'll send you the stuff.
Are we
can
going
do-
into like a different realm when we fight in combat?
You
Is
do.
that how that works?
Mhm.
Okay.
So-
So it's like it's close to like 5.
What do you mean close to 5?
Well, I guess it's all the personas.
Mementos.
But like you,
All of the personas, yeah. So Persona 3, they actually have like a description in the book too of like ways that you can do it. And one of them that I really want to try, but it isn't for this group, they have like a Shadowrun version of it where like it's not like the Shadow World, it's the online like universe, like going in, like
yeah, that's
everybody
cool.
uses it and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, once again,
That is cool.
mm-hmm.
Yep.
I think there's a million and one things you can do with it, but it's like Persona 3, it was time. Like, so there's an hour that people weren't aware of between midnight and 1 a.m. called like the witching hour or something. I don't
dark
know.
hour.
The dark hour. And every human being turns into a coffin and basically just doesn't realize this hour exists. And then like the people that are unfortunate enough to not turn into coffins basically get killed by like these dark creatures that are pouring out of this like labyrinth of like a Tower of Babel kind of deal that the characters with the persona power are exploring to figure out why it's happening. Persona 4, there's an alternate universe that TVs are the portal to, but the TV needs to be like unplugged. So like you unplug the TV and like you can walk through like the dormant TV and it spits you out somewhere randomly in that world. But those portals are like doors. So like if you go through the same TV every time, you show up in the same place every time.
Mm-hmm.
And then Persona 5 was like an app, and there was basically like a ritual that they had to do. Like they had to know who they were looking for, what that person's like, insane, like, distorted like version of whatever you were going to was and what that location meant to them. Right. And then you can complete that ritual and it sent you there. So like there's a bunch of different ways to like enter this other world. So my thing is you guys are going to cross a very specific bridge in your town. And that's like how like things are going to like progress.
Okay. Need to brush up on some Persona stuff, I guess.
You don't really have
Just play
to.
the whole game tonight.
I could do that. That's
yeah.
easy.
It's easy. All 3.
It's on my Steam Deck.
Really? Which one?
5.
Yeah.
That
Cool.
game made me $20.
Yeah, that game made you more than that. 'Cause didn't I double up on it?
I don't think so.
Maybe I didn't bet a second time.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah.
I think I lost a bet and I gave you your $20 back.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
That makes sense. Well, no, I'm interested. I think it'll be cool. The cool thing about Persona, it's so unique. You just have the freedom to be as creative as you want because it's always super wild and meta and like crazy. So
we have to be high schoolers.
That was the request. Is
Okay.
you know, say we keep it canon. There is rules for being a high schooler versus an adult. And the funny thing is, like, one thing that we won't do here, but if people did want to turn it into like a semi-regular thing, they have like the rules for like the downtime, and there's actually like what you do are like these spotlights. So you have 2 sections where you can earn like social like experience that help you build like different abilities up. And so you can like, you know, read or go fishing or whatever, and you can actually, they have like probably 7 pages of like downtime activities and how like you could DM them. And what you do is for each day where they're not like exploring the shadow world, you do what they call a spotlight, and you focus on one character, and that character like runs through their day. But then there's also rules for like characters like doing activities together, like in the games. So you might spotlight Tyler and John's day out or something like that, and you just role play that one scenario, and then the day passes.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
yeah, no, thanks for. I think it was a really interesting video, and it gives you a lot of ideas. I think it's like one of the main points, right? Like once you play this, your perspective changes, especially if you're running games. So thanks for bringing it up. I thought it was a good conversation. Yeah, we'll try it out, see how it goes. Anyways, I think that's all we got, right?
It's another 3-hour cast.
got through everything.
Almost creeping up on Jeff's record.
Oh, really? Wow. No. Thanks for joining, Nate. Always a good time. Thanks for bringing those ideas. And for everyone else, check us out, couchcompany.games. We got all of our stuff there, the podcast, our game ratings, our top 5s. Everything is located there. Couchco Games on X as well. And we're going to be here, same time, same place next week. Thanks for joining us on the couch. Peace.